to call this meeting, or if you could rise for the invocation and pledge the flag. Lord, our Heavenly Father, as we gather here tonight to conduct business for the city of Leesburg, please give us the wisdom to make the decisions that best reflect the desires of our citizens and benefit this city. All this we ask in your name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. So we have no proclamations or presentations tonight, so we will roll right into the consent agenda. Routine items are placed on the consent agenda to expedite the meeting. If the commissioner staff wish to discuss any item, the procedure is as follows. 1, pull the item from the consent agenda. 2, vote on remaining items with 1 roll call vote. 3, discuss each pulled item and vote by roll call. Do we have any items that need to be pulled tonight?
4B1 for me, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
4B2 and 4C2.
Okay. Anything else?
4B3, and that's just for explanation.
Okay. All right, so we have 4B1, 4B2, 4B3, and 4C2. Could get a motion to approve the remaining items?
Move to
So
approve.
moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Commissioner Bowen,
Yes.
Commissioner Christian,
Yes.
Commissioner Hurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Dennison,
Yes.
Mayor Robo.
Yes. 4B1.
I'll ask you about time.
Consideration of a project to install lights at the Venetian Gardens Sand Volleyball Court, and if approved, approving staff to move forward and not exceed a cost of $20,000.
Like I said, I pulled this just to ask a question about the motion sensor. So where it looks is that if 1 o'clock in the morning someone walks by, the light's gonna come on?
No, the lights are going to be on a timer.
Okay. Because it says motion sensor on the fixture will then turn the lights on when there's activity on the court.
Yep. We'll make sure they're on timer.
Okay, so at sunset,
So when they're
no
off,
matter what
when
walks
this commission decides to close the park, they're off.
That's my only question.
My question is, I guess I don't have a problem with the idea of lighting the volleyball courts, but have we had people asking for us to do so?
Yes. I'm the one that brought it as a result of that.
So we have volleyball groups or something that want to
That's correct.
play? Okay.
They play, I believe it's Tuesday, Thursdays, and Sundays.
Okay.
And that, one of the things too, I wanted to address, and we had talked about it with me and Al. You know, they'll be on a timer, kind of like the racquetball courts and stuff. But right now, the one thing that I'm not really sure we need to address, we're making the park hours dusk to dawn, but here in the wintertime, it's going to be dark at 5 o'clock. Our park's going to be closed at 5 o'clock with lights, so it don't really make no sense right now to me. I think we need to adjust the hours, to the park.
Okay. But is that just like a generic park?
Yeah, I'll have, I think the first step is get the lights started and get that up, and then we'll come back and visit an hours of operation issue with the commission on how you want to do that. Because I also think there's some homeless issues that feed into that too, where if we do have set hours, we maybe be able to trespass a little better and help that. So I want to get with Travis as well as Chief Hicks, come up with some recommendations for you, and then I'll get a hours of operation issue back on the commission's agenda for your consideration.
So if we're doing it that way, why do we need a motion sensor? If we got set hours that it go on and go off, why do we need motion sensors on these lights?
Because you're going to want to turn the lights off.
So they're off when nobody's using it when it starts.
Okay, so if no one's there, the lights go off, even if we have, say for instance, from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Right, but there's going to be a time where if there is somebody in the park, when the park's closed, you don't want motion to turn those lights on because the park's closed.
Okay, say that again now?
I think you want motion sensors.
Okay.
So, you're there in the wintertime hours. You're there at 6 and it's dark.
And nobody's using the court.
And nobody's using the courts, so the lights come on. But then if the park, say, closes at 10, you don't want somebody walking underneath the motion sensors at 10:30 tripping on the lights.
Why would we want the lights on if nobody's playing volleyball?
That's what I'm saying.
That's not what you're saying.
Yeah, I am. I'm saying you want the lights to come on in the dark when the dark comes early, and you still want the park to be open.
But you can't just put a timer on it, so anytime you want them on, you just turn the timer on, turn it
You
off
wanna
like
help
a
me
light
out?
switch.
Basically, the way it'll work is there'll be a timer clock on the electricity feed. So like, let's say you say from 5 to 9:30, electricity will feed to the lights, but the lights won't come on unless there's somebody on the court that hits the motion sensor.
Okay. So they'll be off during the regular hours unless someone walks by.
Right.
Yes.
And then at 10 o'clock when they're off, it doesn't matter if someone walks by or not, they're gonna
They
stay
won't
off.
come on at all.
That's what we're saying.
All right.
Yeah.
And I still disagree with that.
You want them to
So
come
you
on
want
at
to stay
11?
the whole time?
No, I don't think they need to come on unless somebody's playing ball. If a kid rides his bicycle through there, they shouldn't turn the lights on for the day.
That's what we're saying,
No,
Jay.
it's not.
Yeah, it is.
No, I see what Jay's saying. Jay's saying if at 8 o'clock you're allowed to play volleyball, but no one is, they ride a bike through there, you don't want the lights to come on.
The option to that would be
Got
to add a turn knob to it, but if some kid walks by and turns it, now they're going to be on for an hour.
That's better than 5 hours.
All right. We can address that.
I just want lights. I don't care. Turn them on all night. I don't care.
Speaking for Bower Park, no, you're not going to turn them on.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I guess maybe we just try it this way, and if it doesn't work, we can add a new switch.
I'm in. Sold.
Okay. Any discussion from the
They
public?
have a puzzle for us tonight. A little.
Discussion from the public? Roll call?
Commissioner Christian?
Yes.
Commissioner Hurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Dennison?
Yes.
Commissioner Bowen?
Yes.
Mayor Robuck?
Yes. Move on to 4B2.
I'll introduce and ask for your title of me.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute Amendment 5 to the design contract with Borelli and Partners for value engineering revisions to the design of the community building and providing an effective date.
Move for approval, but is that Amendment 5 or 3?
Well, the
You
agenda
had
says 3,
5?
but the resolution says 5.
I think that's Amendment 3.
Okay.
Is it 3?
It is 5. We'll make
The other four are
we'll make
listed on the agenda.
Yeah.
Oh,
we'll make sure they match.
okay, thanks.
We have a second.
Second.
Discussion?
So I asked to pull this, and although I've been not as favorable about the community center itself and what we were spending and the options that we had doing it, now that we're doing it, and what this proposal is that we're to keep costs down on it. This is to make some changes to basically accept less than what we've started for the purpose of saving money. And I personally have some questions of about these roof changes. Is how's that going to change the look of the roof on the outside? What's it going to do on the inside? Because there were some aesthetic features of that way that roof was going to be on the interior. I didn't know. Commissioner or Mayor Roebuck would be able to tell us all about this EPCOR stuff. Probably, I didn't know what it was. So
No, we don't do that.
No, you don't do it.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know what it was, so I looked because this is talking about switching from EPCOR walls and ceilings to gypsum, so just drywall. And so I looked up the EPCOR, and that's an architectural. Those have architectural features to it, and so if you Google it and you look at the pictures, it looks a lot nicer than just your regular drywall that's stuccoed. And then I see that we're going to take less do less kitchen equipment, which I was opposed to the kitchen, but if we're going to do a kitchen now, we're going to do one that's cheaper products and wall tile in the kitchen, and so it looks like for the purpose of saving money, which is a good thing generally to save money, we're going to accept less than what we started out with originally. And and I go back to, okay, well, of course, this is going to be a new building versus what we had as a community center. But part of the idea was to just do this first-class community center here, and I just feel like we're kind of moving around here, and we're not getting what we expected originally when we were doing this project. And so I would be more in favor of doing a doing what we were going to do and have all the features and that we were going to have with the community center, even though I've been opposed to the community center. But I think we do it the right way. And I'll just give one small example of that and this type of a decision making, and that's Main Street out here and I wasn't on the commission at the time, but one of the issues that came up on Main Street was whether to do pavers at the intersection with 27. And I think if I remember right, just happened to be at that meeting, there was a discussion. It was like $30,000 or $40,000 difference between doing the stamped concrete versus the pavers. We should have done the pavers and spent the extra $30,000 or $40,000 to do it. If you go out there and look, originally it still didn't match up with the brick, but it was okay. But already it looks out of worn and cracked, and we've got problems with it. And so we should have spent the extra $30,000 or $40,000 on the Main Street improvements when you compare that to the full cost of the project. So I look at this, and if the commission itself has decided to do this community center, and we had an expectation when we start that it was going to be first class in what we were doing there, I'm not supportive of cutting back and taking inferior products, getting rid of the architectural design features for the walls and the ceilings, and I think it just needs to be done the right way. We've made a decision to make this the polish this jewel of Leesburg and make it shine, and I think that's what we need to do it and find the money to do it the right way.
With that, let me. You mentioned about 3 modifications, and DC can fill in. Dan, can you flip-flop those slides that on the overhead? This picture, oh, this is hard to see. Can you hit the lights too, DC? This picture represents, as best we can with the lights, the original design of the community center. And there's a couple things to really take note in this. Number one, these are kind of the wings of the community center, and you'll note here there's a hip roof here to keep that roof flat, keep it attractive, to match some of the area like we did with Rogers Park and those type of things. So this is kind of a really attractive roof design. Over here, we also have a huge glass wall that kind of came again with the concept of building on the lake, keeping this as open, keeping this as fresh and unique and architecturally attractive as possible. The back is the same. This is the back view that goes out to Martin Luther King Island. All this is glass, and then a glass cathedral wall here in the middle that supports this architectural feature. Commissioner Bone also mentioned modification inside. To get this type of roof structure, we had to go with two materials. One, we had to go with a truss that's significantly thicker and more heavy duty. And then 2, we had to go with the Epicor. And what those 2 things gave us was the ability to have these cathedral vaulted ceilings throughout the facility. So the architectural feature of the inside of the room would be a vast open space with the hanging lights. And you could do that because you use this Epicor material, which is basically a finished surface material that goes down on the roof structures. Bam, you put it on, it's done. And then that allows that interior room to be open. To save money, when we got this 100% design in, I think our budget was about $750,000 to $1 million over budget. So before we brought that number into you, on a staff level, I made the decision to modify it. So we made some changes. Dan, if you flip the picture. What this contract now calls for is, instead of this hip roof here on the side, you go to a more conventional standard truss that doesn't have to be as heavy duty, and you save money. And so instead of the hip roof, you have this A-frame roof. Secondly, instead of having the heavy-duty truss that lets you have the cathedral ceilings and the Epicor, you go with a thinner truss more conventional framing, and a regular roof. But when you do that, you have to then close in the roof. So what you'll have is you'll still have cathedral ceiling in the facility, but you won't have exposed beam. So we thought that that was a fair trade-off. We also lost some of the glass paneling in here to again save some money. The original, and this is kind of subtle, but let's go back so I can show you this. You'll note in this design that the portico that goes into the facility is separated from the main building, but there's a 3 to 4 foot overhang on this upper roof. That 3 to 4 foot overhang covers this gap. And then with the way this is designed, you can get the glass all the way up into the soffit. Dan, flip it for me again. To save some structural material on this soffit coming out, we brought the soffit back in. That would leave a gap between the portico and the building, so we pushed the portico into the building. That makes you lose this glass panel. So we did go back, and we are suggesting that we put in this light structure so that you have this light. Now remember, your cathedral ceiling now is going to match these eaves, and instead of having exposed roof truss, you're going to have a finished drywall type ceiling. You're still going to have the attractive drop down lights and the cloud design and that type of thing. And also, we kind of cut back a little bit too much here. This light in this window will still go all the way up. So essentially, you save money by changing the structure of the truss, bringing that soffit in, and shifting from the hip roof to the A-frame roof. All those changes, we estimate about $500,000. On the kitchen materials, there's not a whole lot of changes in that. We haven't cut back that kitchen a great degree. I think in that case, the vendor's kind of sticking some different things in there that he told us a certain number, 185,000, and then that number started slipping up on us, and we just brought that number back. So I don't think the kitchen modifications are significant at all. This is a significant change. The other thing as well in roof structure, kind of to sum it up, again, we had a kind of an open frame design for the portico structure. Again, it was the heavier duty steel. We went back to a lower gauge steel with a more conventional truss that would actually close this structure in. So instead of having this vaulted roof in the portico, it would be a flat roof. We still need to talk about what the soffit material is in here and throughout the verandas. That's the change. The savings is around $1 million. As a rule of thumb, the commission authorized a $7.8 million budget with some other monies that we shifted around internally within our authorization. We got it up to about a $7.9 million budget is what we have to build the building, buy the furnishings, and do the site plan work. After the changes with the architectural firm, our budget for the building landscape right now is about $7.3 million. So we're very hopeful that with these modifications, we're going to be pretty close to that number. If you decide to go back to the original plan, you don't have to approve this issue tonight, but I'll be back to you with a change order of somewhere in the neighborhood of around $500,000, maybe a little more.
So so we're looking at what, about 7% of the full cost of the building then, or so?
Yeah, almost 7 to 10.
Okay, and then the whole Venetian Gardens monies that we're spending, what are we spending out there for?
About 12 total, all three phases: Rogers Park, Ski Beach, and this facility. About $12 million.
Okay. So I mean, it's, of course, the will of the commission on this, but architectural features are things you can live without, and you have a functional building that's still going to be nice, but those architectural features are also something that cost the extra money, that give it that bang and pop when you walk into the building. And if we're making this the premier location in Leesburg for this for this facility, and I think I personally would move forward with all those architectural features that we had anticipated beforehand, so that it's something that's attractive for many, many years to come. And when we walk in there, you're not. I mean, of course, it's going to be nice, but having those beams and everything else would be much nicer, and to go with the cathedral ceilings. And I can see the differences architecturally on the overhangs and everything as well. But
Have we gotten any preliminary estimates on what this steel increase is going to be?
Not really. We're estimating that $500,000 ballpark.
Okay.
And the changes in the steel world, and because of the complexity of designing that hip roof, every one of those trusses is different, and they're thicker gauge steel. And then when you add the Epicor onto it, that's where that $500,000 cost came. So
the Epicor is steel, so by eliminating that, you're eliminating a lot of the tariff steel issues.
But the Epicor, of course, the drywall, you can do some things, texture and stuff to make it look. But Epicor, from what I saw on it, Epicor has some groove features, and
in fact, if you can imagine these vertical blinds up here, it's kind of the look that it gets. It's a channel kind of a look.
Yeah, it looks like decking, or is that right? Maybe so. It's.
I mean, you could put decking on the drywall if you just wanted to have that look. I mean, which would be significantly cheaper if you.
And I guess you could build some fake beams in there, can that be done? You can make make it look like there's trusses running through there, some sort of a.
I don't want to. The answer is yeah. I think we could probably do some of those type of things. My goal was to keep this in budget for you. I mean, and so we've had those discussions. I think you're correct. I think, and this is why this has been brought to you, this change order, so we could publicly have this discussion. It is a significant architectural change, and if we want to keep that look, that's a great picture there. If we want to keep that look, the price tag on it's $500,000.
Well, like I said, I would want to do it the way it was originally designed, with all those architectural features. If you can do it cheaper and come back and make some of these fake false beams, some other, I guess, false decking look, or whatever.
I'm probably going to steer away from that, because by the time we go back and then argue with George, and no disrespect to George, and then get it back with Evergreen, and then I think that the pound for dollar, you might as well stick with the original design, because now instead of $500,000, now you're at $250,000 or maybe half of that. You don't get that full savings. I don't want to say it's an all or nothing kind of thing, but I for the pound for dollars that you're talking, save big. You kind of go big or go home.
Well, where are you getting this $500,000 from?
I'll go back to cash. And that's the cash reserve from fiber sale and all that. Don't hold me to these numbers, but we reviewed these periodically. So you're still sitting there somewhere between $9 million. So that'll affect the next project. But this is the project that's the premier project right now. Do it right and invest in that. So I understand, but to go beyond that number is really a commission call, and that's why this is here.
I just think even if you keep it, even with these changes, it's still going to be nicer than anything in this area. And I guess my whole thing is, we're not private enterprise. We're going to charge. Everyone's talked about, we want to keep this thing affordable. We don't want to have a super high-end rental rate. If we're not going to have a super high-end rental rate, then I don't know that. I mean, I think this is still a really nice facility, even with these changes. And the idea that people looking up at the ceiling are going to notice, walk in and say, "Oh my gosh, I wish you would have spent another $750,000 so my ceiling looked different."
Well, I don't think we should have spent $7.5 million to tear down the community center that we had and the swimming pool. I was with you.
So I didn't want to tear it down. I wanted to remodel it.
You never voted.
It's too late now.
You never voted that way, so
it's gone.
Neither did you.
It's gone, y'all.
Oh no, I voted every time against it. So every single time I voted against it.
I tried to stop a vote.
For someone who voted for it every single time, I agree with Commissioner Bone. I mean, it's going to be here for 50 years. That's $10,000 a year if you want to break it down. I mean, there is a wow factor in it. And you can say that it doesn't matter, but when you go into your home, you have wow factors, even though people don't sit around your house in the living room and look up at your ceiling. you want it to be nice when they do look up. And so, you know, we've been behind everybody else for 20 years as far as community centers, and you know, we do all these tours and we look at the things that have been built around us, and the bottom line is I think, you know, it is unfortunate, you know, architects, my explanation given to me by our city staff was architects can draw anything, but they don't think about what it's really going to take to get it done. And so, but, you know, I think this is going to set us apart, and, you know, the community is really behind it. So for me personally, I support, and every time you guys, I've been watching here tonight, this started out as about 250 to 300, and then y'all shot it up to $500,000, and then it just now was 750, and a while ago Al said $1 million. It's not, you know, but we can't just keep raising the price up just to make it more appeasing to us. The bottom line is I support keeping what we designed and what we've been working on for the last 5 years now, and I think it is going to matter, and I agree, if you're going to do it right and just be done with it and figure out how to go from there.
$600,000 to $700,000 is the official number on our agenda.
That's what's on that paper for everything.
$600,000 to $700,000. Yeah, on all these amendments. Yeah.
Well, I go back, I mean, you know, the commission made the decision to tear down the community center, tear up a swimming pool, instead of spending $2.5 million to fix the community center that was there and make it look really nice, and we would have still had a swimming pool. And so once you've made that leap to tear all that out, you've made a commitment to do something first class the right way, because you just opened up the checkbook for what you're going to be doing down there. And so now here we are, we're going and doing it, and now we're backtracking and we're saying, oh, well, wait a minute, it's too much money to do it what we wanted to, what we had planned on doing. That was the whole justification for tearing out the swimming pool and tearing down the community center in the first place. We could have nipped it in the bud by just doing $2.5 million to renovate the community center. We would have had a swimming pool. We had to spend a little more money, but we wouldn't be spending $3 million over at Susan Street or wherever the swimming pool is going to go, and we wouldn't be sitting here today doing this either. But we're here, so do it the right way.
So why don't we just add another $5 million? I mean, what's more money? We just keep adding. I mean, the idea that something's not first class.
What do you want to add the $5 million for?
Because you want to try to save money and still have a nice.
No, what do you want to add the $5 million for? You just said.
I don't want to add any of this, but the logic.
Well, you have to tie $5 million to something. I can't answer you about what we're going to do with $5 million if you don't tell me what you want to do with it. So, well, we're talking about 600,000 or whatever here. So.
Well, I think personally for me, there's some other projects I want to see done. So when I asked Al for what 500,000. If he gave me 500,000, so what else can we go do in the city of Leesburg to make Leesburg better? Personally, I did vote for the community center to be torn down and rebuilt, and I think our staff has come to us tonight and said the current plan we have puts us almost $1 million over budget. So staff did what staff should have done, is try to keep us within budget. It gave us an option, scale it down, stay in budget, or spend $600,000 to $700,000 more. I think that's what's on the table tonight. For me, not a whole lot of debate, but I think I agree with staff. The recommendation is to go with what staff has presented. I don't want to spend $600,000 to $700,000 over budget. I think we talked about other communities who did that, and I think that's not good for us. I think it's a perfectly fine building as it is. I think the citizen of Leesburg is going to enjoy this building, the other building, but can they stand say, I just spent $600,000 to put some more trusses in? So for me, I like this to save $600,000, take the $500,000 to go do some other projects in Leesburg.
And that could just be the start. Oh, well, we need another $1 million now. Well, a month down the road, Evergreen comes back to us and says, well, you really have to do this. Well, why didn't you tell us that up front? You know, why are we finding out after the fact, after this has all been approved? So I agree with you. I really do. I just think this is going to get more and more expensive, and we don't need that.
Well, I wish the commission would have thought about that when we started the whole first thing in the first place.
I was the one that was fighting all of you.
We could go back and look. We had one meeting here where I was the only no vote to approve a contract moving forward with this, and Commissioner Dennison and Mayor Roebuck both had their own reasons why they didn't want to do it.
That was a year after the original.
But we hadn't moved forward with it yet. And so nobody wanted to jump in at that point in time and kill the deal and go and just stick with the.
Quite frankly, I was tired of fighting it for a year by myself.
Okay, and so it could have been done then. And at that point in time, everybody on this commission can't say that they didn't know that at some point in time, there was going to be more cost overruns on this, and we were going to have to come back and up the price of it. So that number, $6.5 billion, that was originally talked about, or whatever it was never a real number. And whatever number we're talking about today isn't a real number. It's going to still be more, like Commissioner Dennison is saying. But nobody thought about that back when we were comparing, you know, actually, I think it was originally when we started with the community center, it was $4.5 million versus $2.5 million to $4.5 million for a new one versus $2.5 million to
Renovate.
doll up the old one. And so the difference of $2 million was like, okay, let's justify to go ahead and build a new one. So here we are, and we're not getting the totally dolled up version that was talked about, and it's going to cost more money, which should have been expected. And those things should have been talked about. $8 million. You break that down. If you look at what we did at the at 47 and 27 and 441, that was an $800,000 project at there. We could have done 10 of those around Leesburg for the money that we're spending on this community center. So talk about different projects. Well, I think we should have thought about that, you know, back when we started this whole thing. We could do the math. I mean, we could do 20 $400,000 projects or for what we're doing on this.
Well, let me just say, I'm just kind of going back to Commissioner Dennison. It's not that I'm asking, let's make this more, let's make it nicer. No, my point is, this is what we agreed to, what we all wanted. No, let me phrase that. Apparently, me and John are the only ones that wanted this.
I wanted it.
And we won it on a 2-3 vote. But my point is that it's doing what we did. I mean, you know, have you guys ever been to Tavares Community Center?
Yeah, it's small.
It's small.
Expensive.
It costs more than ours.
It's ugly.
But every person, my daughter got married there, every person that has ever been there, they've been booked out since the day that thing was built, talks about how beautiful, and that's where people want to go. And their biggest challenge is room. Honestly, as close as they are, if they had a bigger one, there wouldn't be nothing going on over here, in my opinion. So I'm not saying, I mean, I think we're all smart enough to know that there would be change orders along the way. It is a little disheartening that the cost of steel has driven the price up, but I don't, you know, I mean, you guys can sit here and talk about all the projects. Listen, we have money, we're spending it. Now we're going to take a little bit more cash. If you want to talk about, well, if we take that 500, we could have cut the resource center.
We did.
We could have cut it a lot more, but we didn't, and we're even finishing things on that. We're trying to make, I think what we've been doing here lately has been first class, and it's been nice, and people go to it, and they look at it, and they go, okay, it took them a while to get the steam engine rolling, but now that they're rolling, and I don't want to sound, well, but we don't have, I mean, it's not like we got a bonus check. I mean, we're talking about just using. We have continual revenues coming in, and we have a lot of projects, things that are happening. We're in a good position, and we can afford it, and it's not going to kill us on any other projects. I mean, I have some things tonight that I'm going to talk about, that I'm hoping that some of the projects we've been wanting, there's some ways that maybe we can start getting some of those done. It's not going to cost us any money. I'll give you one example. Did you look at what the tax revenue is going to be coming in from the villages? Yeah. Well, we're going to get a whole whopping, what, $2.6 million a year is what the city's going to get. So that's going to be nice. That's going to be perpetual. But the school board is going to get $4.6 million. The school board, with no impact on their schools whatsoever. None. Zero. Well, in my opinion, the school board might want to think about helping us with a swimming pool. I think that would be a great start for them to take their first year's worth of money and build a new pool. And so we have things, but to not, I don't know. Number one, I believe in it. Number two, I'm just happy that me and Commissioner Bone agree on something. So I'm just trying to really push it.
That too.
Any other discussion from the commission? Discussion from the public?
My name's Todd Drennan. I live at 9307 Silver Lake Drive. I believe I'm officially not in Leesburg, but I still have a Leesburg address. I'm an architect. I have no relationship to this building whatsoever. I think that you will notice the changes and the things that decrease the quality of the building. Over time, I don't think you'll notice those. When I say, over time, I don't think you will notice the extra money that you had to pay to keep those nicer things there. Nicer buildings remain nice, and they become landmarks that people are really interested in. So I'd encourage you to keep the architectural things. As I look at this building, it is a decrease from what you originally had. And although it is sometimes fair to blame the architect for over-designing, this is not a far-out building. It's well within, the public scope. It is much less than a lot of commercial buildings would be putting into it. $6 million for a building is not that much money in today's building economy.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Roll call.
Commissioner Hurley?
Oh, wait a minute, which way am I?
Do you have something? This is to reduce the amount we're spending.
No.
Commissioner Dennison?
Yes.
Commissioner Bone?
No.
Commissioner Christian?
Yes.
Mayor Robuck?
Yes. Okay, on to 4B3.
Got an ugly building because of y'all.
It's gonna be pretty.
I'm gonna remember this.
Do you want your name off the plaque, Jay?
You're so funny. So funny.
I'll introduce and ask to be read by title only, please.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute a second amendment to the reimbursement agreement for wastewater and reclaimed water facility improvements with South Sumter Utility Company, LLC, and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
Discussion?
Is South Sumter the villages?
Yes.
Okay. Could have asked you just aside. I just wanted to know.
Yes.
Okay. That's actually all I needed.
Any other discussion? Discussion from the public? Roll call.
Commissioner Dennison?
Yes.
Commissioner Bone?
Yes.
Commissioner Christian?
Yes.
Commissioner Hurley?
Yes.
Mayor Robuck?
Yes. 4C2. Someone like to introduce?
I'll introduce ask that it be read by title only.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, accepting and approving an agreement between the City of Leesburg City and Duke Energy Florida LLC Duke for the city to reimburse Duke in the amount of $54,711.55 for material costs associated with the protective wall around a portion of the Leesburg 14th Street substation and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second. I just asked to pull this one because we're going to have this big wall there now, and I see that we're going to paint it this terracotta color.
Yes.
And I just want to bring it up to the commission. I know that like the Center for the Arts and other, some cities that they're doing these murals and those kinds of things, and I don't know if maybe this is an appropriate place to consider doing something like that.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that would probably look great.
Big city locale on their wall.
Yeah, be awesome.
So I pulled that just to
Yeah,
see if that was,
I'll put that on Maria's docket.
okay.
Another question. I noticed today was in the heavy rains right in front of Bank of America. It was a huge water puddle, and it hasn't been there in recent years. So I don't know if this wall had anything to do with it, but it was a lot of water right in front of the Bank of America, the corner center in 27.
I'll get with Glenn on that.
All right.
Are they going to do anything else to the front fence on that property that looks so nasty? I
Okay.
mean, the cement on the side is one thing, but that fence in the front looks just as bad as it did before.
You want to address that, Glenn? It's
We have two folks here from Duke Energy as well to address any questions.
Oh, I
you
have some things to talk to you about.
Glenn Spurlock, Electric Director. So the wall, there's going to be a blast wall.
Okay.
So that is what they started and have up on Center Street. There will be a section of the blast wall or wall at that same height will start at that corner and go down 27, go north on
okay.
27. Then when both of them get to the gate on each side, then they'll go to a lower level wall, but it'll continue to the end of the substation, both on Center Street and on 27.
Okay.
The other two sides will remain the chain link fence.
Is there any way you can clean that chain link fence up?
Paint them black or something.
That I'll have to ask Duke, since the fence belongs to them.
Hey, Duke.
Dan, Ed?
Thank you. It really, the fence that's there right now really looks ragged.
I'm sure it's cheaper than the wall too.
Yeah.
Can you all see me? Gee, I don't know how to answer that question. My answer is going to be that I believe we were going to redo that back fence.
Okay.
I have to talk to the project manager that's in there. We've just started reaching out to the municipal so they had a contact. And I will get back to the commission and let you know where we stand on it. If we don't replace it, then we'll have a conversation with the commission and say, what can we do as a group?
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
So it won't go without a reply. Okay? Do you know who I am?
Yes, I do.
I'm sorry. All right, thanks.
I have one question, Glenn, and Mr. Duke. On the time frame, when you're getting ready to do the wall, can we make sure that we don't expend as much time shutting down Center Street as we did on the first phase of that?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Could you state your name for the record? Sorry, we need.
Ed Ferrone.
Okay. It's not Mr. Duke.
I wish it was.
We came up the elevator together and asked, was he going to cause problems? And I see you going to cause problems.
No, sir. But, you know, I will apologize for how long it took last time. We have had a conversation with the individual that's running the particular project and asked them to put out dates that we can give to Glenn, and Glenn said he will hold us to those dates, and that's what we've told to the project manager.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, before we go on to the public hearings, actually, I wanted to speak about 4C3. I thought it was 4B3, and we had pulled that, but I realized it's not. Can we talk about that before we go to there, or do you want to just wait till the end of the meeting, or the end?
Is it something you wanted us to change a vote on, or you want to just
I
discuss?
don't know. It depends on how the discussion went.
We need to vote on the item on the Duke Energy
Okay.
substation before we move on.
Okay. So any other comments on the Duke? Roll call?
Commissioner Bone?
Yes.
Commissioner Christian?
Yes.
Commissioner Hurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Dennison?
Yes.
Mayor Roebuck?
Yes. So then if we wanted to reopen up for C3,
I'll introduce and ask to be read by title only, please.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an amendment number 4, extending an existing lease with DOPA Enterprises, DBA Holiday Marine, for commercial space at the Venetian Cove Marina and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
What all are we doing in this lease?
We're basically just extending it for a year. They have had a lease with us for some time for maintenance operations that provide the customers that go in and out of the marina. I think we're kind of in a little bit of a transition with the marina as far as where we want to go with it and how it blends in to the basin improvements and Dozier Circle improvements. We've had a number of discussions on that, and as far as that goes, we've had some RFPs to lease out the facility to private parties. Financially, I don't think those return well for the city because of the profits that we have put into the general fund from the marina. I think there's some things that we can do in the future, but we're not there yet. So since that agreement with Holiday has expired, my recommendation was to go with it one more year while we kind of figure out where we're going to go with the marina. So it basically keeps the operation standard until we change. It's a one-year deal, expires in September.
And all they're doing is the
service.
like mechanics stuff and stuff. They're not actually. They don't run it. We still run like the gas and the office and all that stuff.
Yep.
And then we're going to look at something. What way we're going to go.
A more comprehensive look in the next year.
Okay.
I'm with you there. I want to absolutely look at this once our Venetian Garden stuff.
Yeah, because the 550 doesn't seem like a much at all a month. We can't do better than that, or now?
I didn't push the number just because because I wanted to keep it short term, and I didn't want the city to commit to longer than term than that because I knew we were going to be taking a look at this.
Not that we would do anything within the year anyway, but does this have like a 60, 90-day cancellation, or is it just a good, solid year?
It's a one-year extension, flat year.
Well, and I would think that sometime after the first year, we could really start having some in-depth discussions, maybe.
Yep.
How long has it been at 550?
2010.
2010.
They've made out well.
Yeah. So.
Okay, then I'm
So we've
fine.
already approved this,
Yeah,
actually, so I don't
I
think we
just
need a
really
vote,
wanted to
but
talk
yeah.
about it. So I appreciate that.
All right. So, is any other discussion on this item or discussion from the public? Okay, then we will move on to public hearings and non-routine
Do you
items.
have to vote on that?
It was already voted on.
Okay.
Nobody voted to rescind
The
that.
original, okay.
5A, if someone would like to introduce.
I'll introduce, ask to be read by title only.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute a public facilities development agreement with the Villages Land Company, LLC, and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
Discussion.
I had a couple things. Talked to Al a little bit about is the fire service. Kind of talks about, I guess we charge $58 and the village charges $160, and we come up with a negative about $285, $600 annually. So my question was, is there a time frame in this, Al, of this until perpetuity, or is there any time we come back and look and review this, a future commission?
I put together, the answer is yeah, and it's really in the commission's domain on how you want to modify our fire services agreement. So, Dan, if you would, there's a presentation there, and it kind of, let me just
I'll just wait. Go do it.
step by step here. Will you put it on the presentation format? This icon here. So hit the next slide for me, Dan. So essentially, this agreement, we kind of synonymously talked about this agreement as the hanging chat agreement, the general services agreement that covers the relationship on how the city and the villages will function, providing municipal services to the villages that will be in Leesburg. When we went under contract about a year and a half ago, we had about a 1,900-acre deal. So at the end of the day, after we've done our due diligence, here's the parameters of where the property that we're selling and how we got there. This blue piece was always a conservation piece that was mixed between FCT, Florida Communities Trust, and St. John's. There was some concepts that the villages worked on for commercial, park, recreational type of development, but ultimately, because of complications with FCT and how those properties were meant to function and how they're in the trust, those development plans at this stage haven't materialized. They could in the future, but also remember this was a low-cost item. I think the offer was $500 an acre for the approximately 254 acres. The second portion of the project that can't be accomplished is this yellow area. This yellow area we need to retain. It's about 479 acres, and the bottom line reason we're retaining this is because we need it for effluent spray. So I know there's some articles, there was a lot of discussion by the Planning and Zoning Commission about cherry picking property and the village is squelching on the deal. That's not the case. The case is that this property was really never meant to develop. And if you go back, the area that we did develop it was this 2004 470 master plan concept. This concept contemplated a commercial or an industrial and light industrial development area, which was only about 500 acres right in here. And so if you go through this report, it was 500 acres of light industrial and industrial development in this area, and the rest of the areas are denoted as spray field. From this report to the 470 concept that was put together with the city while Jay Evans was city manager, all of this became developable property without a plan for effluent spray. That plan that when I became your city manager was unaccomplishable. It was pie in the sky. It wasn't going to happen because we could not develop this property without getting rid of effluent. The commission now became aware of that because as we started selling off portions that were outside of this initial scope, Mr. Modlin came into my office with his hair on fire saying, you have got to quit selling property outside of a specific area, or in another way he said it was, you only got so many acres that you can sell before we have an effluent problem. So that's when we put together a concept map you've all seen in my office it was kind of modified to this, but kind of got back to this initial roots of, we've got 500 acres, not 2,000 to develop out there. What happened to make this deal work and open up a tremendous amount of taxable property and a tremendous amount of availability to grow our tax base and increase our tax revenue is that the villages thought they could take all of our requirements and develop all of this. As we got into our due diligence, here was our requirement. We needed them to take, DC is at 6 or 6.5 MGD. There's the requirement in this agreement that you're approving tonight. And by the way, it's of the 8 pages that report is, this is about 4 pages of it on how we're dealing with effluent, what the maximum daily loads they need to take are, what the minimum daily loads they need to take are. And there's protections in there for the villages because the villages needs to say, if they're taking this much water, they need to be assured they'll have this much water. There's protections in this for us because the key to this development and increasing our tax base is finding a place to put the effluent. So when we went through that, there's about a 30 to 90 day window each year where at this stage there'll still be a requirement to spray effluent. Therefore, we need that. And if you recall, this body put a covenant on that property to say we're going to use it as effluent, and as that effluent goes away, we can open this up for sale. We teetered around with keeping this under contract with the villages, but I didn't think you want to do that because if ultimately they come back and develop this, then maybe we can renegotiate the sale price. But before we can unlock this property, the effluent has to go somewhere. So this is not a cherry picking case. This is not cutting anything down. This is to make this happen to its fullest, we got to spray effluent somewhere. That's that bullet point. The conservation easement in place. So we did put a conservation easement so they can have access to that. There's still potential for villages development, and at the end of the day, the sale is about 1,127 acres, all represented in this orange area. Dan, will you flip the slide?
Yeah, just so we're selling 1127. If they took no effluent because they're taking a lot, what's the amount of land we can sell?
Zero.
So we're out of land we can sell if someone doesn't take effluent.
If you don't, hey, go back to that picture. If your question was, if you don't sell them any land, how much land can we sell?
To someone else, without someone taking effluent, or how much do we have left? This development?
Zero. And
okay.
Here's why. Reason number one is you need this property to spray effluent. Mm-hmm. So if you don't have a partner that can take the effluent, you can't sell that property. Reason number two, you can't sell that property anymore, especially if you go back to the industrial plan, is the United States Navy over here. Remember that? When we went through that whole plan with the Bug Springs issues, the Navy came in, and the Navy, interesting, the Navy didn't, I don't think the Navy ever visited the city when you did the 470 master plan. I don't think the Navy ever visited the city when we expanded that to be everything. But when the Navy woke up was when we did the core slab deal. The core, not the villages, but the core slab deal is what woke the Navy up. So when we had this plan as an industrial plan, we never sold any industrial property, until, Mike, when did we do that deal? 2016? Yeah, it was 2016. It was October 2016. When we did that deal, that's when the Navy started poking around. And interestingly enough, the Navy ended up at the county. The county passed the overlay. They visited with us. And then ultimately part of this deal in our due diligence with the villages was to ensure that the Navy was going to approve the ARD development. They have. So through this process, we've now restricted this property. A, you got to get effluent off it, and B, it can't be industrial development anymore. So now we've really restricted our partners with who we can dance out here with. Okay, so Dan, flip it. So where are we at on the this is financial on the land sale only. How much are you going to net? So our total price or total acres is 1127. Your unit price was 7,000 an acre, so that's a net of, or a gross of 7.8 million. Remember, we got to reimburse EPA for 636 acres. We did 2 appraisals. The appraisals came in where the average of the appraisal was $7,008.50. So that shows we got a pretty good price from the villages on the sale, but we got to pay them 75% of this value of that number, which is 3.3 million. So the city pockets 4.5 million. So that's the sale deal. So let's talk about estimated economic impact, because that's why we're doing this deal. To get the maximum use of property, to increase our tax base so that we can take those dollars and reinvest in core Leesburg. The general fund in fiscal year 19 was $26.7 million. This sale, at the estimates that we did, and I'll show you the estimates in a second on our assumptions, increases the general fund by 9.95%. So this deal, tax revenue increases 10%. It increases your property tax revenue by 46%. And this is the big number. It increases your taxable value by 4.1%. or 48%. So total taxable value increase here of about 600, or that's, I'm losing my numbers here. That's a number.
It's 1.3 billion.
1.3 billion. So that's your current, so whatever 41% of that number is, it's about 650 million is about what this deal does as far as build out. Your regional impact, school board, $4.6 million. That's their millage rate. They've got 2 millage rate. They got a capital improvement millage rate and their general fund millage rate. And remember, that number is at 25% or 25,000 homestead exemption. So while our number goes to 600 million in new assessed taxable value, their number stays around 750 million because they don't have the extra 50,000 they have to exempt. So 4.6 million. Zero skin in the game. No impact. 4.6 million into the schools. Lake County. This is 6.6994 is their total millage rate. So that's county general fund, county fire, MSTU, county, all their stuff. 3.7 million. So if you add those numbers plus our new taxable number, you're sitting at 10.6 million in annual new tax revenues, which, mind you, for the city excludes gas tax, it excludes DST, and it excludes, there's one more other special revenue in there that it excluded, only because they're based on population, and I didn't want to make an assumption. But there's more special revenues that will come to us as well. Dan, next chart. Let me talk to you now. How I know this is teeny, but these are the assumptions we made. We estimated that a village's home would cost about $275,000, and I think that's really going to be more of a range between $225,000 up to $350,000. And Villages of Fruitland Park is a good look at that. We made an assumption of 2,800 units, $275,000 less the homestead exemption. We put in our electric franchise fee for our good friends from Duke. Are they still back there? 6%. Duke will serve probably the most of this area is what we expect. But we have about 3/4 sections that will serve. Then we have our utility taxes, typical rates, and so we just basically stuck these in the charts. So as far as what we saw from new revenues, we estimated about $3.5 million, to $2.2 million in new ad valorem monies, 113 in I can't even read that.
Industrial and commercial taxes.
The commercial trades, and then so fire assessment fee collection on down the line, 3.5, and then we thought our basic expenses would be police, 3 new officers, 275. Fire services, to Commissioner Christian's question, 400, and this number is 420. It's 480 in your package. The villages did agree to drop the fire assessment fee from 160 to 150. So if you do agree to this, please amend that number. Street lighting costs, street maintenance costs, and traffic costs. So we figured we had just a little under 895 is that number. So the new revenues less the new expenses, the net of that 2.6 million. Let me jump now to the fire service question. One more, Dan. I thought that would come in. Here, why do we do a deal with the villages on fire services? Here's why. A, that's what they requested because they want their communities to receive the same service look that the other villages communities do. Note I said look, not service levels, because I think our fire department and their fire department are equivalent in what we're trying to do in level of service. That level of service number being respond in 4 minutes. Most responses too, we're having a mix now of fire service talk and EMS talk, and even though they're blended, they're still separate. Nonetheless, here's where we're at. So let's compare costs. Why are we doing this deal with them? A, because we still net $2.6 million. And 2, we have to provide that service. 3, we want those services to look similar for the villages. And 4, we can get the same level of service and technically pay significantly less and not have that burden. Our current fire costs are $5.8 million. Divided by our population of 22,419, that's a cost per capita of $257. Our cost, the payment that we have to pay to the villages is actually not $420,000, it's $420,000 less, but to try to keep this as an apples to apples comparison, our cost is $420,000 less the projected villages population, which is 2,800 times 2, which I think is, their number is probably closer to like 1.8 per unit, not 2 per unit. So I think that number's a little heavy. So that unit cost is $75. With the goals being same level of service, 4 minutes, with the villages taking on the risk and the cost to bring in new equipment and new stations. And I'm not going to stand here and say you'll never see a Leesburg truck in the villages, because there's still going to be, hopefully not, but there's probably going to be a fire. There's probably going to be major accidents, or there's probably going to be what I call an overload on EMS service, where EMS in the villages is busy one day, another emergency response happens, and we're going to respond to that. I don't think that's the village's load of the numbers about 4,700 new calls that are going to come in. I don't think you're going to see Leesburg handle 4,700 new calls on an annual basis. I think you'll see some. I don't know what that sum is, but it's not 4,700. And at the end of the day, pound for pound, the village's resident is paying to the city the same thing that all the other city residents are paying. They'll pay a property tax rate of 4.2678 mils or whatever the commission adjusts. They'll pay a $58 annual fire assessment fee or whatever the commission imposes. And they'll still pay the Lake County MSTU, which is Emergency Management Services Municipal Service Taxing Unit, and everybody in incorporated or unincorporated Lake County pays 0.4629 mils to have the ambulance service. So all things being considered, everybody's being taxed the same. In this particular case, the city's covering that territory on a service provider level differently. And that's essentially how paragraph 3 in the hanging chat agreement is.
So Al, on that real quick, on building a new fire station, are we having any control or say so when that's built or where it's built? And my question is, they're gonna be Leesburg residents, so if the villages start building homes and there's no fire station built, our station gonna have to cover those calls until one is built, or if one's built further down 470, these gonna still be Leesburg residents. They're gonna come in here and say, hey, we don't have a fire station close enough, and I know we're hiring 3 new police officers, but do you still need to hire, us having to hire new firefighters for Oklahoma to cover those calls?
Let's talk about that a little bit. Does the city have a bone that we can hit the villages with to ensure that they build a fire station? No. But what we do have is their track record and their goal of maintaining the 4-minute response time for all their citizens, because they deal with citizen complaints too. And I also think that we can probably get into what's going to come down next is mutual aid agreements that really aren't party to this deal, but I think in those discussions we can probably have those discussions. I also think on a fire service level, when the additional homestead exemption is passed in November, that fire services are going to be talked about again, because I don't think we're ever going to get out of this regional conversation of how we do fire services. I think we're in for that conversation whether we want it or not. So to try to base a fire services deal and who's doing what on this deal, which is very lucrative for the city, I think that's short-sighted. So if we end up having to add personnel, I mean, say the magic number's 3, that's $180,000. You're still netting $2.5 million, and you serve them out of Oklahoma. So no, I don't see major capital investment. On the worst case scenario, it's maybe personnel, but the cost of adding a couple of additional firefighters significantly is below or a cost that you can absorb in that net.
I had a question about the commercial side of it. I know there's nothing factored in here because at this moment there's no expectation of the commercial fire assessment, but what happens if there is commercial property?
Yeah, we did. I think we got a good deal on that. And the villages does not want to commit to what commercial development is going to occur, but I think we've had enough conversations with the villages that we can reasonably suspect that there will be commercial development. If commercial development does happen, that makes these numbers go up, so that's even better.
We don't owe any more, or would we?
So what we did in the agreement was it's a dollar for dollar. The second paragraph in paragraph 3 is whatever we charge for non-residential is what the villages will collect. So I think our number is 1 cent per square foot for commercial. So if they build a 40,000 square foot building, what's that number? $4,000. That goes directly to the villages. So we don't have that lost like we do right now, where we'll collect $58 from the village resident, and then we'll pay to the villages.
Did you negotiate that 150 on the 160?
I had a little to do in that.
So another question is that so the residents are going to be paying the city $58, and we're going to be paying the villages $150. If there was any type of action that happened where that could cause us to lose our $58, or I don't know a scenario, but I'm just going to speculate that there's a scenario where we lose $58 a month coming in.
That is totally in your control. How the agreement is set up is whatever you charge the non-village resident, you charge the village resident. So if you increase your fire assessment fee to $75, so too does the village's resident. If you decrease your fire assessment fee to $25, so does the village resident.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is that we're going to have how many residents living in the village?
Estimated 2,800.
So we're going to have 2,800 voters, new voters living in Leesburg, that are going to be paying $58. They're going to be paying double for fire assessment. They're going to be paying the city $58 and the villages $158.
No,
we pay.
No.
I'm sorry.
We do.
We got
okay.
The village voter
so
is
they're
going to
still be the 58.
Yep.
Okay.
But the explanation in that is different service provider. But I don't want to overcomplicate it, but essentially what we've got going on, and you point this out all the time, Commissioner Bone, we're undertaxed and under fire assessed, and then we subsidize that with electric revenues or enterprise fund revenues. In the villages, we're not going to have that opportunity because we're working with a different partner, And we're not going to be able to have those other utility subsidies that go directly into propping up those public services to the degree that we do now in core Leesburg. So that's the discrepancy. But where you start looking at this, is this a fair number, is the $1.50 per year per residential unit matches up with our number. Our maximum fire assessment fee number is about $158. So the cost for providing that fire service is about the same. We choose to only levy a fire assessment fee at a third of the value that we can recoup. The village is doing it different. But that resident's paying the same, we're providing that service differently. And that's why you've got the loss from the fire assessment fee that you collect versus the fire, and let's correct term, the fire assessment fee that you'll collect versus the fire service that you pay to the village.
And so the new 3 policemen, they're going to patrol the village area that we're having?
Yeah. And I think we need to be, you know how I feel about personnel, so, I think we add those as we go.
Okay.
How many's in like, where you live?
Legacy.
How many residents?
Not that many.
What is it there, about 1,000?
And it's about 1,000.
So it's about twice that size?
Well, it's almost 3 times that size. 2,800, right?
And that's homes, not residents. So
That's right.
it's going to be like 5 times probably
Yeah.
actual resident-wise. Yeah.
I had a question about the road maintenance too. So I see that we've got so the roads are going to be turned over to the city. Is that how they do it in the other cities now?
Yep.
And so we've got 25,000 in there budgeted for road maintenance. Is it 50, or if it's 50,000, whatever, annual? I mean, that's a good number.
I think so.
50.
It's not going to be like that. It's not going to be 50 grand, 50 grand, 50 grand. It'll be like 100 grand, 0, 0, 0, 0.
And then, so we're waiving the impact fees.
That's correct.
Now,
on the services that they'll provide.
So typically so is there impact fees that are related to the streets at all, or?
No. There is impact fee, not impact fee. There is impact fee related to stormwater. It's not an impact fee. There is an assessment with the stormwater that is being waived for the village residents, but the villages is taking care of all their stormwater retention. So it won't have a citywide impact.
So when we do our impact fee, and I don't know a breakdown when we do have our impact fee, so much of it is maybe going to go for, for fire, for police. Is there any part of it that goes towards roads of an impact fee, or?
Leesburg does not have a road impact fee. Lake County does.
Okay, so we do not.
We don't have.
So we're not giving up there and taking.
No, the impact fees that we retain is we will retain the library impact fee and the police impact fee. The fire impact fee we waived because they'll be providing the fire services. We waived the parks and recreation fee because they're providing and maintaining the recreational services. We waived the water impact fee because they're going to be providing all the water service. They got a separate CUP. They'll be building the infrastructure. We waived a sewer impact fees because we're doing the bulk treatment deal, but they paid us a $9 million capacity fee for that. And we're only doing the treatment side, not the distribution side. So anywhere they're providing their own service, we waive the fee, and anywhere we did the service, we did a modified fee, or they get the full fee.
And the solid waste, is that a guaranteed per house 5% franchise fee? Is that
Yes.
collecting that? Okay.
They pick it up, they dispose it, we get 5%.
That'd probably be enough money to finish out the community center the way we want it.
Only 30,000.
Over time.
My only one, and I'm okay with all of this, but the one that comes back that gets me is that that we're going to be paying a fire assessment fee to the villages greater than what we allow ourselves to be paid for the rest of Leesburg, and and I'm not saying during our budget meetings and things I'm supportive of let's raise that. I'm not saying to raise it to the $160 or $158, whatever it is, but But that part of it is a challenge for me, that we're going to be doing this with the villages. Now, the rest of Leesburg gets the benefit of still just paying $58. But I think that on this, if you come all the way around and you think this all the way through, the villages is charging $160 or $150 for their fire assessment, because they will not put their other money into fire services, because that's not a good way to do business, to take your money from other things and put it into your fire. But yet we as a city, when we can do the same thing and we can assess up to $158, we're doing bad business by taking money out of our other revenues to support our fire service. And that keeps us from being able to do other things that maybe we would do, like have better architectural design on our a jewel of the city there, or other projects that that maybe we would be doing. So that's just for the future, and the commission, they have future commissions, if they ever see the light and want to raise the fire assessment fees, it will go up with theirs.
And I was in uses at a uses commission meeting. They went through their budget, and they went through the same thing. It was really amazing to see another city. And what they said is, Leesburg has a fire fee, we don't. That's why our balloon fee is at not 4 point, but 6.7. So I think the trade-off is either raise your property taxes 2 mils, or from 4.6 to 6.6, and do away with your fire fee. So I think I'm looking and say, okay, we do the fire for $58 and get $1 million. They just raise their balloon.
Yeah, but if you
I think some cities just depends on which apple or which bat's going to pick from.
I think it would be more better to compare us to Mount Dora, because they have their utilities and the fire and what they do, and not that we should charge our fire assessment. I don't think we could justify what they charge for theirs over there. Theirs is over 200 now, I think.
And my whole phase has been, because you can't raise just on the resident, seems low, but then you got some businesses that are paying 3 and 4 cents a square foot and have some,
Right. But back to this. I mean, as far as this goes, I think it's a good job. I think this Al and the city. I wasn't in the meetings, but I assume we've negotiated this as hard and tough as we can with the villages, and I don't have any.
What do you
other
think
questions.
that $10 a house ended up saving us?
I think it was 30 grand. 28,000. Yeah.
Good job, Al. That's Al when you call me Al.
I know. Commissioner Dennison got on me.
So we do need to quickly probably just go ahead and do an amendment to change it down to that before we forget and accidentally pass 160, because this says 160.
Good thinking.
I make that motion to move the 160 rate to 150.
Second.
Any discussion on the amendment? Discussion from the public? Roll call on the amendment to reduce the fire fee from 160 to 150?
Pardon?
We're voting on an amendment to reduce the fire payment. Okay.
No, I want to talk about the villages.
Okay. We'll get to that. Roll call?
Commissioner Christian?
Yes.
Commissioner Hurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Dennison?
Yes.
Commissioner Bone?
Yes.
Mayor Robuck?
Yes. Okay. Now back to discussion on the.
And one last point, Al, we talked about the commercial being dollar for dollar. On the house of worship, is it the same for the villages if someone builds a church in the villages?
Yeah.
Okay, very
We
good.
use the words non-residential.
Very good.
Okay. Discussion from the public. So it's on the villages.
Don Luckich. Let's go back to the beginning. Originally, the deal with the villages was 1,900 plus acres at 7,000 an acre, which included 700 acres of marginal land, swamp land, or useless. At 7,000 an acre for the whole package, I thought that was, probably a good price because of the marginal land. But now the villages is buying only prime land. Is $7,000 an acre too cheap? Maybe we need to get it reappraised so the city at least gets market value for the prime land that they're selling, because the city is going to retain the 700, and I'm rounding off numbers, the 700 acres of marginal land. So I think before we go into this deal, I think maybe the city ought to get it reappraised. It's what is the true market value of prime land, the 12, or I guess 1,127 now. I thought it was 1,252 or 1,272. and get it appraised, because it is all prime land. Thank you.
Well, I think maybe we missed the part of the discussion where we talked about the affluent, because the market rate of the property to any one of the market rate to the property to anyone else is 0 because we can't sell it because it's a spray field.
The appraisal that we just had, the 2 appraisals that we took, the average, did those just appraise the usable land, or? I mean, how was that?
I don't think.
I mean, we got an appraisal, right?
Look, I don't agree with Mr. Lukich's termination on how he phrased usable and prime and not prime. There's 2 types of property in this deal: developable and non-developable. Will you go to that, Dan? Will you go back to that picture, the up first? So, and by the way, the agreement won't let us do what Mr. Lukich is suggesting either. We went under contract for $7,000 an acre with a good faith offer, and ultimately the purchase is what we could purchase. And by dropping off sections of the property, I don't think you change value of what that other property is. So, Dan, if you go back to that picture.
Now, while he's doing that, if I recall, that agreement, the original agreement actually had a 2-tiered pricing system.
Right, and I'm
yeah.
re-explaining that, okay? So what is developable, or in my opinion, prime property, was the orange and the yellow, okay? The blue was always considered conservation or park areas that was questionable on whether they could be developed. The answer was, we got a lot, during due diligence, it came out, we can't develop it. So we're not even going to sell that now. That was $500 an acre. On this property, remember, that goes back to the whole effluent story. To be able to sell this or this, we had to get rid of the effluent. We determined that we still needed this for spray. And in the future, if we find a place to put this spray, maybe in the villages or deep well injection, or we purchase property somewhere else where we can spray effluent, then you can sell this property. But until we unlock how to get rid of that 6.5 million gallons of effluent for longer than a 90-day time frame, because there's still 90 days that you need it. We don't anticipate that, but minimum of 30. Until you figure out how to deal with that for that small window, you can't sell the bottom, which is developable if you find a place for the effluent.
But still, you're selling 1,127 acres of prime property at the original price of $7,000 an acre. And to me, if it's only prime property, common sense tells me it should be worth more. And the city should get what a marketable value would be. And the only thing I'm suggesting is what is developable, what can be developed, is you get an appraisal on it and sell it for the market value so the city gets everything it can get. After all, the deal was changed from the original 1,900 acres. Why can't the price change to what market value is?
Don, we are getting everything that we can get.
I'd like
They're the only ones that can use it.
point out that what Mr. Lukich is requesting has in effect been done. The 636 acres that was appraised at $7,008 per acre to pay EPA was appraised after the contract was signed, and that 636 acres is not all of the property that EPA helped the city buy years ago. It's only the part being sold to the villages, which is within the developable area. So effectively, that 636 acres was what Mr. Lukich is calling the prime property, and it came in $8 over the sales price. So I think you're right on the money with that based on a very recent appraisal of it.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Any further comments from the commission?
Well,
I'd just like to reiterate the fact that second appraisal was done after we signed a contract. And it was only for $8 more. So you think if the EPA comes in and does an appraisal, it would have been sky high. but it's not. It's $8 more than what we're getting an acre. So I don't think the benefits that Leesburg are going to get from this should be threatened for $8 an acre. So that's just my opinion.
And I just want to commend the staff, Al and his team, and the villages working together. It's been a long process, a lot of moving parts, a lot of changes from initially when we started, and that is to be expected. And we're not a private developer, so we can't negotiate like a private person would negotiate. So personally, I would probably sit down in the village and want more until they tell me no, I'm walking away. But I think staff done a good job operating in the public. I think it benefits Leesburg in more ways. I think, hopefully, I know all of us probably have beat Al up and asked Al for more and told Al what we thought should happen. I think he's tried to harness all of our ideas and do what's best for Leesburg. So I know I've talked to Al several times about this, and I'm proud of the fact that he negotiated in good faith and brought a good product to Leesburg.
Further comments? Roll call.
Commissioner Hurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Dennison?
Yes.
Commissioner Bone?
Yes.
Commissioner Christian?
Yes.
Mayor Robo?
Yes. Right, 4B.
5B. Right, is it 4B?
Yeah, 5B.
5B, sorry. Going backwards.
I'll introduce and ask to be read by title only, please.
Resolution of the City Commission of the City of Leesburg, Florida, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute a First Amendment to the reservation and provisions of wastewater services with South Sumter Utility Company, LLC, and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
Discussion? Discussion from the public? Roll call.
Commissioner Dennison?
Yes.
Commissioner Bone?
Yes.
Commissioner Christian?
Yes.
Commissioner Hurley?
Yes.
Mayor Robo?
Yes. 5C.
I'll introduce and ask to be read by title only, please.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, relating to a non-exclusive water use franchise, amending ordinance 2018-2 and providing for an effective date.
Move for approval.
First reading.
First reading.
First reading.
Next
Okay.
time.
That will, any discussion? Discussion from the public? That will roll over to our next item. On to 5D.
I'll introduce and ask to be read by title only, please.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an amendment to the development agreement between the City of Leesburg and the Villages Land Company, LLC, as approved under Ordinance 18-05, for the purpose of amending said agreement per Chapter 163.3220 through 163.3243 Florida statutes, providing for certainty to both parties in terms of current and future development process and entitlements, setting out density, intensity, land uses, and processes to be followed for development, clarifying how land development regulations will apply, anticipating and planning for continued future development, and establishing design standards and process requirements for development taking place under the ARD, Age-Restricted Development, Future Land Use Category, and Zoning District.
Discussion from the commission? Discussion from the public? That'll roll over to our next meeting. On to 5E.
I'll introduce and ask to be read by title only, please.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, amending the future land use map of the comprehensive plan to change the future land use on approximately 11 acres from industrial and technology commerce park to age-restricted development, and amending the legal description for the village's West Lake for property generally located north of County Road 470 and east of the Florida Turnpike, as legally described in Sections 6, 7, 8, 9, and 16, Township 20 South, Range 24 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date.
Discussion? Discussion from the public? That'll roll over to our next meeting.
I said one,
Sorry.
Mr. Mayor. There's some recommendations out from the MPO. Commissioner Bone, I'm sure you didn't see this one, but talk about the bicycle trails that they want them to put in. Are we making sure that's being done?
Doing our best on that one.
All right. You can catch that one.
I was going to bring that next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, let's comment. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I live on 2709 County Road 48, and I live right beside the turnpike like you're talking about.
Would you mind stating your name for the record?
My name is Robert Allen,
Thank you.
and like I said, I live on 20. And y'all did some surveying right there. I don't know if this is the right time, but I missed all your other meetings. But there's a confliction of property lines, and y'all were taking like 21 feet of my property by 80 feet going all the way to the back. And I didn't know who I could talk to about that or whatever during this. That's what I wanted to say anyway.
If you can just give your name and address to the clerk, I'll put you in touch with the people who you need to talk to about that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, that'll roll over to our next meeting. I believe on 5F, or do we just 5F?
I'll introduce, it has to be read by title only, please.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, rezoning approximately 11 acres from City PUD Planned Unit Development to ARD Age Restricted Development for amending the legal description for the Village Westlake for property generally located north of County Road 470 and east of the Florida Turnpike as legally described in Sections 6, 7, 8, 9, and 16, Township 20 South, Range 24 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date.
Discussion?
Your Honor, Dan Miller, Planning and Zoning. This is a transmittal hearing to send this case up to DEO, and we do need a vote on that, please.
Okay. Okay, so any discussion on that vote for the transmittal?
I'll make a
Someone make a
motion to approve to transmit it to the state.
Second.
Okay, any discussion from the public? Roll call?
Commissioner Bowen?
Yes.
Commissioner Christian?
Yes.
Commissioner Hurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Dennison?
Yes.
Mayor Robuck?
Yes. Okay, so now on to 5H.
G.
Oh, no, G. Trying to just get us ahead. 5G.
I was going to say I don't want to introduce it, I want to move ahead. I'll introduce it, has to be read by title only, please.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, amending the future land use map of the comprehensive plan to change the future land use on approximately 1,272 plus minus acres from age-restricted development to institutional and conservation for property generally located north of County Road 470 and east of the Florida Turnpike, as legally described in Sections 6, 7, 8, 9, 16, 17, 20, and 21, Township 20 South, Range 24 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date.
Same comment, Mr. Mayor.
Someone like to make a motion?
Transmittal.
Move the transmit.
Oh, second.
Discussion? Discussion from the public? Roll call?
Commissioner Christian?
Yes.
Commissioner Hurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Dennison?
Yes.
Commissioner Bowen?
Yes.
Mayor Robuck?
Yes. So now on to 5H.
I'll introduce and ask to be read by title only, please.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, rezoning approximately 1,272 plus minus acres from ARD, Age Restricted Development, to P Public for property generally located north of County Road 470 and east of the Florida Turnpike, as legally described in Sections 6, 7, 8, 9, 16, 17, 20, and 21, Township 20 South, Range 24 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date.
Any discussion? Discussion from the public? That'll roll over to our next meeting.
Your Honor?
Yes.
I would like to ask for a clarification. On a previous case, number 5E, that was the one that we needed to vote on for the transmittal.
Oh.
And I think it was accidentally voted on for the rezoning case, which was 5F.
Yes.
Is that- okay.
So we don't need to transmit the rezoning case. We need to transmit 5E if someone would like to.
Move the transmit 5E.
Second.
Discussion? Discussion from the public? Roll call?
Commissioner Hurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Dennison?
Yes.
Commissioner Bowen?
Yes.
Commissioner Christian?
Yes.
Mayor Robuck?
Yes. Okay. So are we on I? Okay. I think we're on 5I.
Aye, yes, sir.
Okay. Someone would like to introduce.
I'll introduce us. We got my time.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, amending the text of the comprehensive plan for the Villages of Westlake project to establish a minimum acreage threshold, establishing a process for amending an existing ARD, age-restricted development project, and adding a list of existing age-restricted development projects in the city on property generally located near the Florida Turnpike and north of County Road 470, as legally described in Sections 6, 7, 8, 9, and 16, Township 20 South, Range 24 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date.
We'll need to transmit this one as well.
Move to transmit.
Second.
Discussion? Discussion from the public? Roll call.
Commissioner Dennison?
Yes.
Commissioner Bone?
Yes.
Commissioner Christian?
Yes.
Commissioner Hurley?
Yes.
Mayor Robuck?
Yes. Okay, so now we're on to 5J. Or, yeah, the normal ones. Okay.
Second readings.
Yeah, someone like to introduce 5J?
Introduce 5J, recommend read by title only.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, further amending the City of Leesburg retirement plan for general employees adopted pursuant to ordinance number 03-57 as subsequently amended, amending Section 8 disability, amending Section 16 miscellaneous provisions, amending Section 26 reemployment after retirement, amending Section 27 deferred retirement option plan, providing for codification, providing for severability of provisions, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
Discussion? Discussion from the public? Roll call.
Commissioner Bone?
Yes.
Commissioner Christian?
Yes.
Commissioner Hurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Dennison?
Yes.
Mayor Robuck?
Yes. Okay, 5K.
I'll introduce and ask to be read by title only, please.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, annexing certain real property consisting of approximately 3.4 acres, being generally located on the east side of U.S. Highway 27, south of the intersection of Magnolia Avenue, lying in Sections 2 and 11, Township 20 South, Range 24 East, in Lake County, Florida, providing that said property so annexed shall be liable for its proportionate share of the existing and future indebtedness of said city, providing that such annexed property shall be subject to all laws and ordinances of said city, as if all such territory had been a part of the City of Leesburg at the time of passage and approval of said laws and ordinances, providing that such annexed territory shall be placed in City Commission District 3, and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
Discussion? Discussion from the public?
I had just a thought. So, so this is going to go. This is a proposed more storage facilities to go next to the storage facilities there on 27, and
We talked about the way it looks, if that's what you're concerned with.
well, it's not just the way it
Okay.
looks. It's just that the continual nature of. I mean, if on 27 from Dixie, as you start, if you go back south there. There's not too much that's very sightly in the way of developments and the, okay, there you go. That looks nice, looks nicer than most storage.
I was really
I've seen.
concerned with this. I brought it up at the last meeting
Yeah.
as well.
And I think that was, you know, that looks nice, you know. It's a lot better than the one that's there. But I'm just concerned because you know that's our entryway in, and you know Commissioner Dennison with a lot of your constituents are down there in the Legacy area that come up that way, and just what kind of entryway we're bringing into that end of town there. So
Apparently it's pretty popular at 466. Where, the villages come in, they pop one of these up. I guess they like to store there.
There's one on 44 being built that's probably that size or bigger. Then there's another one right down the street from it that's going to be like RV and boat storage. And that's just that's part of the problem with like Commissioner Dennison's neighborhood.
You notice that everything that's growing in Leesburg is going into District 3. That's my neighborhood.
And her neighborhood, they don't have like big driveways and yards and garages to keep their stuff, so they need these places.
They're big toys.
This is for her constituents.
yeah. So that addresses a big question I had. Is that if you look at the one that's there, this looks a lot better. And I know, and this is probably in some of these other ones that we're getting ready to vote on, but if it's okay to just talk about it now, this one doesn't show any landscaping, and I'm just overly disappointed with our landscaping for new development and what it looks like when it's first put in and what it does and how bad it looks sometime after. I think the things that I don't think we require enough vegetation, and I don't think we require large enough vegetation in our developments. When I see a new one come in and we've got these little plants that are like this, and it just doesn't add to the attractiveness, and then I think we fail to maintain it. I think there's one particularly that I'm thinking about that's another, well, it's that gated one right there at Pixiola, where I think some time ago we approved that one to be some outdoor storage where he stores and sells different stuff and fence there and things. And I guess he was required to have 3 palm trees or whatever. Well, one of them's been dead for forever that got hit by lightning or got a disease, I don't know. But there's no follow-up on the maintenance of these things. I even look at our Walgreens or our CVS's or any of these things that they have in other cities that we have here in Leesburg. Theirs look totally different in other cities than what ours looks like here in Leesburg. And so related to this, I would just ask that we require significant landscaping out there of size and number and quality, and that there's follow-up on the maintenance of it.
I don't know how you can implement follow-up, though.
I think it really goes back into modifying the land development regulations.
Exactly.
And, I think that's probably something we take on in the course of the year. I'll speak with Mike and Dan about it. As we add some more staff over in PZ, maybe we need to shift workload and probably make Dan the czar of modifying the land development regulations.
Well, I don't think there's any spirit of the ordinances that says this is what you have to put in, but we don't care what it looks like a year from now. And so if the 10 shrubs that you were required to put in are dead in 10 years, you're still okay. You just need to have some
That's actually, I believe that's correct, because as it sits right now, the ordinance has specific requirements in terms of number of trees and number of shrubs and things like that you put in. It only has to be guaranteed for a year, and we don't have the FISC that we need to add into the ordinance, as the city manager was basically indicating there. And so we need to do something like that.
Then there's modifications that go in there with your opaque and not opaque and class 1 tree and certain height type trees and shrubs and bushes. And so more stringent codes, land development regulations have all that stuff in there. Mount Dora's probably a good model for that. Sebastian was a good model for that. So we need to go and beat up the land development codes, need to go through that process, what the planning and zoning board is going to recommend, and ultimately what the commission's going to approve.
Well, is there anything that we can do with this one, since it's a SPUD, that
yes, sir, there is.
Require some extra?
Within this particular PUD, what we did was require the standards plus 2 times the amount of shrubs and trees in front of the roll-up doors per the mayor's request at the last meeting. We can do that now if you wish. We can double up on the landscaping.
Can we require that it be maintained for longer than 1 year, or what would it?
I know of no reason why we could not.
Is the developer here?
There's a couple of representatives here from U-Haul. David Waite and TJ McGray.
Come on, that's beautiful, isn't it? No, it's going to be a project that's going to cost us about $5 million. My name is David Waite, by the way. I heard him say it. We have every intention of putting landscaping. We have every intention of taking care of it and making it look excellent. Because, to put a building up like that and let the grass go along and weeds be everywhere is not something we're interested in doing. The facility that's there, we purchased, it was existing. We didn't build that. This is what we build. This is what we go ground up from. And, you wanted shrubs, Mayor, we'll put them there in front of the doors. Whatever you need us to do, we'll do within reason. I mean, you got to be able to get in and out of the property without killing yourself because you can't see around a tree, I mean, we've all pulled out of a business and you can't see the car until it's right on top of you. Palm trees is great. We like to stick with something, for the Florida look. It's a great idea. So you just let us know what you want to do. We'll play ball. We're
So are you
for the
okay
long haul.
with more than a 1 year requirement of maintaining it? I think that's Commissioner Bones asking.
We'll maintain it till everybody in here is dead.
I think that's what needs to be. It needs to be in perpetuity, that it's maintained.
I was going to add, we can add language to the PUD that requires maintenance in perpetuity.
It's fine.
I only have one question. Did you say you're spending $5 million on that building?
Well, we're talking land, everything.
Maybe they should build a community center.
Do you have any chandeliers or anything?
No, we're just trying to get the tax revenue up because rumor has it you guys are running over budget on your community center. we're here to help, you know. But no,
Actually, we're not over budget after the 3-2 vote.
I don't know. It's kind of hard to follow, you know.
I got a project. We need your tax revenue on. Thank you.
All right.
You haven't lost votes tonight, so I can tell you that.
And then my only other thing goes back to the bicycle lanes, and I don't know that we even have any kind of a plan in place of how, again, from South Leesburg, that people can bike eventually into Leesburg at all, into downtown. And so, do we have a future bike lane laid out that says we're going to be on the east side or the west side of 27 or?
Hey, DC, do you have an answer on that? The MPO? We don't have that plan.
So here's a property on the east side of 27, and if we had a future plan for our bicycle path to go down to South Leesburg, we would know whether it's going to be on the east side or the west side. And if it's on the east side, there needs to be some dedication of some area on this piece of property for bike lane.
There's plenty of DOT set back there if they came in there and wanted to add a bike path.
No, this is what you do in development, though, is you impose it on the owner of the land and the developer to put that they have to dedicate that land and even build it if you're in the process of actually doing those improvements.
You have to be careful with that because under Supreme Court precedent, exactions like that have to be reasonably related to the burden placed on the public by the development that you're exacting it from. And it would be hard for a facility like this to create any sort of legal nexus between bike lanes and what they're doing out there. The county, a number of years ago, well, for years they would require you, if you did something like this in isolation, to dedicate so many feet of road right away. It didn't hook up to anything. They had no plans for it. And they got dinged for it in a condemnation suit. And they had to return a lot of money to property owners that they took right away from. So you've got to at least have a master plan. And even then, you've got to have some sort of a nexus, or it has to be a voluntary contribution. I don't think you can tell people you can't build that building without dedicating a bike lane unless you can show that they've added to the need for a bike lane.
Or we have to buy it.
Yeah.
And so, but the point of the master plan is my main point, that we don't have anything. And this property, I think we've had a handful of them that have come in already to develop down south. And so we still haven't addressed that issue. If the commission wants to have one, but I think it's, the MPO is, I think is encouraging that there be some sort of bicycle.
Easy to get it now and later.
Yeah, exactly. So whether it's that they provided it now or we bought it now, but we don't even know if it would be on this side of the street because we haven't even made that decision whether we want to have a bicycle lane and where it would be. And so as development comes, I think it would be good if the city had a plan on that.
Do we want to make an amendment regarding the landscaping? Is that what?
Yeah, move to amend the.
Actually, we're not on the landscaping, are we?
No, we're just on the annexation right now.
Yeah, we need to wait till the next. Sorry about that. Any further comments on the annexation? Comments from the public? Roll call.
Commissioner Christian?
Yes.
Commissioner Hurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Dennison?
Yes.
Commissioner Bowen?
Yes.
Mayor Robuck?
Yes. 5L.
I'll introduce and ask to be read by title only, please.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, changing the future land use on approximately 3.4 acres from Lake County urban low density to city general commercial for a property generally located east of U.S. Highway 27 and south of Magnolia Avenue, as legally described in Sections 2 and 11, Township 20 South, Range 24 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
Discussion? Discussion from the public? Roll call?
Commissioner Hurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Dennison?
Yes.
Commissioner Bone?
Yes.
Commissioner Christian?
Yes.
Mayor Robuck?
Yes. 5M?
I'll introduce and ask you read by title only, please.
An ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, rezoning approximately 4.5 acres from Lake County C1 Neighborhood Commercial and Lake County R6 Urban Residential to City Spud Small Plan Unit Development for property generally located east of U.S. Highway 27 and south of Magnolia Avenue as legally described in Section 11, Township 20 South, Range 24 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second.
Discussion? Or?
Yeah, I want to make a motion to amend the requirement for the landscaping that there be.
If I may,
Yes.
Commissioner, staff will increase the landscaping requirements in the PUD via the size of the trees and the number of shrubs,
Correct, and that it be
basically
maintained.
doubling or something like that. We'll get some good language in there that meets your requirements if that
And that there be
pleases.
maintenance in perpetuity.
And then we
on-
will also add some language for maintenance in perpetuity, which will then allow code enforcement to have, if there's ever a problem, to go straight in.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Discussion on the amendment? Discussion from the public? Roll call?
Commissioner Dennison?
Yes.
Commissioner Bone?
Yes.
Commissioner Christian?
Yes.
Commissioner Hurley?
No.
Mayor Robuck?
Yes. Okay, now on the actual item itself, any discussion? Discussion from the public? Roll call?
Commissioner Bone?
Yes.
Commissioner Christian?
Yes.
Commissioner Hurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Dennison?
Yes.
Mayor Robuck?
Yes. Okay, 5N.
Is this going to
This
be
is just
kicked off?
discussion.
Long as short as you want. We have Scott Hyman here from Brown & Brown in case you need questions. Essentially, we're ready to move forward with restoration of the Mount Morris House. We've got our construction budget from Evergreen at $1.1 million. And we need a go, no-go from the commission. Our recommendation is to repair the Mount Morris House. The only thing I would advise the commission is just some of the terminology to be able to get above the insured value of the house, which is $750,000. The insurance policy basically says that they'll repair it to its current state. So whatever it takes is basically how the policy reads. But it has to be its current state. So we can't change the use of it this evening. We can't add a kitchen that was more grand than what was in there. We can't add more rooms. We can bring it back to its current state, its current use, and insurance will pay what that cost is, and that cost is $1.1 million.
And that does include the sprinkler system.
I will go back with the sprinkler system. There is a requirement or there is a specification that says if we have to bring it up to code for specific issues, then they'll cover it. That's part of bringing it back into its current state. So I'll clarify that with Mr. Hyman. I'll need a letter probably from the building official that says that the sprinkler system is a requirement, and then we'll roll that into the contract.
Mr. Hyman, so that you don't have to pay again for a house being burned down, I would like to see us put a sprinkler system in this facility. That is a personal request from me to you.
Good evening. I want to thank you personally for having me last on the docket. Secondly, you've already heard my name is Scott Hyman. I'm with Brown & Brown. If code requires it, it will be paid for. If code is not requirement, you all may pay for it.
We do have that code, correct?
Mr. J. Connell, our building official, has it. Yes.
There we go.
I bid you farewell.
Thank you.
Are we actually awarding Evergreen work tonight, or are we just saying move forward?
Tonight is a move forward.
Okay.
If you say move forward with the restoration tonight, our next stop is actually the historic board, because the way the code is written, the historic board will then have to review the modifications and review what we're doing. Then we'll bring the Evergreen contract to them, talk about the modifications that we're making. Then upon their saying yay, then we'll go back and to Evergreen, and then ultimately come back with a construction contract to you. Probably be the next month or so.
So after all the discussion about changing the use and making it something that's productive and spending this money to get something out of it besides just a big building people drive by, we're really just looking at turning it right back into 10 people a month, some to walk through, that's not even on the Historic Society anymore. It doesn't register to nothing. I mean, out of all the potential uses that building could have and all the potential uses that property could have,
I think what we're talking about tonight is if we want the insurance company to pay to
the only
restore
way they
it.
can
What we're
pay
talking about
for it-
tonight.
No, the only way they'll pay for it is if it goes back to its original.
And
If
that's
we
what we're
don't-
talking about tonight. And once we have a building, we can have other discussions.
Well, there is one other
We can.
just piece of that nobody's talking about, and that is that you just take the $700,000 for the building and you demo it, and you've got $700,000 to do something else with. So, and I'm not.
But let me be very clear, so I don't misunderstand that. But if I'm misunderstanding,
It can be changed at a later date.
okay, I don't think that that's correct.
Well, I think, Allison, if we
I
change
want-
it now, we pay for it. If we go state, the insurance company pays for it.
No, if we go back to its original state, right?
Right.
They'll pay. If it's not the original state, there's no way to rebuild it right now to its original state and then go in there and remodify everything. You'd be talking about double the money.
I think it depends on what you
I
want.
think it depends on what you want to do. The immediate future, to get the maximum amount, to be able to rebuild it, to get it to its current condition, is to tell the insurance company that we're building it and using it as we do now. If we decide in 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 years that we're going to change the use, I don't think the insurance company is going to come back and ask for their money back. Now, will there be future costs to go to a different use in the future? Maybe, maybe not. Depends on what you ultimately change it to. So just to be clear, I'm not saying you can't change the use later on, but if you want to fix it now and you want to fix it and not have any cost out of your pocket, then you need to fix it to its current use. And you can probably put a sprinkler system in there, which will help you change the use later.
Scott didn't hear that. Close your ears, Hyman. Close your ears. Yeah, you gotta stop talking.
Okay, so as long as we're not
No,
locked in later.
no, it's
That's
okay.
all. I mean, I would just.
Let me be clear. You're locked in now.
Besides, the chamber, we've got a 5-year lease on it.
But you can, I think the insurance company understands that in time, things change.
Yeah, it could be like a bed and breakfast one day, 10 years down the road.
Exactly.
Or a nice restaurant, 10 years.
But tonight, we have to get it rebuilt.
Let somebody else pay for it.
John, hit him.
I'm trying. He won't listen to me. He won't stop talking.
Do we have any other
Hello.
discussion from the commission? We have some discussion from the public.
Todd Drennan again. I'm an architect. I happen to have been hired by Evergreen Construction to review this specific building. So the report that you have read was written by me. There's insurance is one thing. Future use of this building. Most of the reuse or adaptive reuse that you would likely use this building would still maintain the existing rooms in the building. To change it out of the way would be so drastically changing your structure, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Things that might need to be done to make it some other sort of use would be the addition of an elevator. If a kitchen were added on, it is likely, that would be better off being built as a building that is adjacent to it, somehow connected rather than in the existing spaces. So my opinion is, if you're going to use it for an additional use, which I think is a legitimate thing to be doing with it, I don't think that that's going to be much money that would overlap with the money that would be taken to restore it. It would obviously be additional money.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Do we need to, from the commission, sorry?
I think we're good.
Okay, do we need just, you want to vote, or you just want to kind of?
Yeah, I'd like a vote to move forward with restoration of the Moat Morris House.
I make that motion, we move forward to restoring the Moat Morris House.
Second.
Roll call?
Commissioner Christian?
Yes.
Commissioner Hurley?
Yeah.
Commissioner Dennison?
Yes.
Commissioner Bone?
Yes.
Mayor Robuck?
Yes. Okay, do we have any city attorney items?
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
City manager items?
And just a quick update with the villages now. Obviously, with the general services agreement done, I think we really only have about one more thing to accomplish, which is the franchise agreements, which will get written up and brought to you. But I think at this stage, we're pretty much on the fast track to getting that deal closed.
Okay. Roll call? Oh, no, we have to do public comments, that's right. Public comments, if you have comments you'd like to make, you can come on up, and we'd like you to leave them, limit them to about 3 minutes.
Alan Reisman, just a quick question. With the new restaurant going at Venetian Gardens and the boat docks going in, is it possible to make some of those seaplane accessible? And then the new landscaping where the Brooker's Tackle is, there's a vape shop there that put like a really big banner on the side of the building, and it kind of decreases the value of that area with all that new landscaping. I don't know if that could be looked at.
Which banner?
Where's that?
Brooker's Bait Tackle. There's a vape shop up in the end, and they put a
Oh yeah,
huge banner on
that's being addressed.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll get that repaired.
Thank you.
On the other issue with the seaplane potentials there, I'm not going to say that's can't be done. I think that obviously the commission needs to have that discussion, and then I also think to do that we're probably going to have a lot of discussion with the FAA, because we got into those issues late in the game with the seaplane ramp at the airport and the docks and the closure of the seaplane, blah blah blah, because we need to have a designated seaplane thoroughfare, or whatever the technical term for it is. My guess would be if we're going to bring seaplanes into the basin, we'll probably have to do the same thing. So I'll task Tracy with that and do some preliminary work and then bring it back to the commission.
I was just going to leave the Easy Speech before.
No, yep.
To very,
Yeah.
Santa Henderson. I first of all want to thank you for opening up the library for Friday. I think that's great. We'll have to work on Sunday another time.
Can I interrupt you on that note too? And we'll get a press release out on this, but I've had some conversation with Lucy, so the commission knows. It's going to take us about, I think our target is January to get the people in place and get the stuff modified. Our operating hours, is Lucy back there? Our operating hours, if I'm correct, are gonna be modified. So it's like 9 to 7 Monday through Friday, and then 9 to 5 on Saturday. So we'll get all that information out in a press release and shoot to have the library opened up on the Saturdays by the beginning of the year.
On Friday, yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's great.
I said, yeah.
So thank you for that. And the sign at Henderson Park is very nice. And so thank you for that. The Moat Morris House, when we first opened it, they had a person there as a caretaker, which was almost like an apartment upstairs, like a bed and breakfast, and there's only room for about one. So I don't know how many bed and breakfasts you could get in there, but they're not, that house, when you look at it, it doesn't really have that many rooms. They're big, but they're not that many. I don't know, but anyway, we're moving along on that too, so thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Okay, roll call.
Commissioner Dennison?
Oh boy, do I have comments. First of all, a very positive comment. 2018 honorees have been announced by the Grow Florida, which is an economic organization. And Leesburg this year has 2 class, I believe it's A or second tier companies that are going to be honored in February of 2019. And they are, wait a minute, I checked them. Okay. IntelliSteel Group, LLC, which is in Leesburg, and it's a manufacturing company, and also Firehawk Helicopters or Brainerd Helicopters in Leesburg. So Little Leesburg has got 2 outstanding companies that have been named for awards. Now, these companies are 50 out of 500 that put in applications or recommendations. So we got 2 of them, and they generate nearly $1 billion in revenue and added nearly 1,000 jobs between 2014 and 2017. So it's an excellent showing for this city. And Brainerd Helicopter, Firehawk Helicopter. David is here tonight. Alan is here tonight. And they are not only putting out and working on the fires all over this country. Leesburg is fighting fires all over this country, but now they're going to put helicopters on a freighter. They're taking them down to Australia to help fight their fires down there as well. So we've got national and we've got international representation for Leesburg. So that's number 1. Congratulations. Could you change your name to David now? Okay. In the budget, we had put aside money to raise the amount being paid to Lakefront TV. What happened to this?
Actually, I don't think we can still do that. The commission never really definitively decided where you all wanted to go on that PIO thing. So we put a proposal there to increase it as a discussion of one of those 9 points, but we never definitively said anything. The standing order that we have from the commission right now is to do an RFP to investigate new service provider for the television station.
Okay, and when is that going to go out?
That is out. Mike, do you have is Mike Thornton still out there? I believe that's out to bid now. We'll be reviewing that and bringing you a recommendation. The current contract with Ciabella expires, I want to say, about December 8th or 9th.
Okay.
So we've still got a couple of meetings and some review.
Okay.
Can I ask a question on that? I thought when we did away with the PIO, we made 2 things about that. We said we were going to give Pam a change of title and a raise, and we were going to take the rest of that money and put it towards television to get better response, so we didn't have to have them covering outside the areas, what I remember.
The first part, correct. The second part, the commission never definitively said the extra dollars for the TV station.
We didn't have a discussion about trying to do where they didn't have to go out and advertise and all that.
We discussed it, but we never came up with a definitive conclusion.
We settled on the RFP, and that we would see how that looked, and then.
And I think that's something that you can weave into the RFP process. So, as we review those things, if we can modify that on the fly when that contract comes in. So it's not a done deal.
Okay, all right.
On the RFP, Mike, does everybody, do they understand that equipment's not ours and all that sets? I mean, that's not our stuff.
I'll clarify that with Thornton, but my assumption is that they do.
Yeah, I'm just saying they might want to.
Yeah, so there's a
I
lot of
think
money we're going to have to bring with them.
that will affect those bids.
Yeah.
The next thing, Dixie Avenue, the center median. Who's supposed to be maintaining that? It's growing out into the street.
That's still the state. We've got that under bid. Our hope is to get you a contract here and get under construction on that in the next couple of months.
Okay. The Miss Leesburg contest was written up by Lauren Ritchie this past weekend, and for once I actually agreed with what she said. These ladies that have run for Miss Leesburg, not only are they trying to get scholarships and whatnot, nothing's being handed to them. They're out there in the city, they're out there donating time, they're out there at all the events that we have, and it's an excellent thing. It's not just your normal beauty contest. They are working hard all year long, so I just wanted to congratulate them, and that was a good article. The amendments for the Constitution this year, I have been for the last few days giving talks and whatnot concerning these amendments. You've got to go online and research some of these because they're not written the way you think what they say. The Sentinel ran some over the weekend. It was missing, I would say, 60% of the background information that should have been on it. In other words, they were trying to get everything passed. Don't do it. Please read. Go on Internet 2018 Florida Amendments and read what they're trying to do with this. Also, go on Home Rule. which is something that the state legislature is trying to do without. Home rule is giving you, the individual citizens, the right to come up with your own government, vote in what laws you want, what codes you want, what you want to have done in the city. Tallahassee is trying to take that away. So please read up on home rule. You don't want...
Which amendment is that?
I'm sorry?
Which amendment is that?
It's seen throughout quite a few of those amendments, okay? Also, Amendment 8, which was the school board and whatnot, has been taken off the ballot by the Supreme Court. So that's something else, but really, you've got to look into what they're attempting to do. Do we really need an amendment on dog racing? Yeah, but does it belong in the Constitution? And there's more to it than just dog racing. They're talking about how pregnant pigs are handled, how different things are going to be done. That's not in the Constitution. Individual cities and towns should be able to do that, just like we did that with chickens a couple years ago. We can take care of those rules. Just be careful what you read, and it's up to you to make sure that you understand. If you don't, call one of your commissioners. If you don't want to talk to your commissioners, call your state legislatures. They're supposed to be advocating for you. They're not there to feather their nest. They're supposed to be your representatives. So I'll get off my soapbox now. We had an incident over the weekend here in Leesburg where there was some vandalism, and it was done to the scarecrows, which are out on the street. Some of them were stolen, some of them were knocked over and damaged. To whoever did that, and I know you're not watching the commission meeting, but let me make comment that this was not a joking thing to do. This was really poor. It's not funny, and we're all we really are dissatisfied with you as individuals, and the citizens of Leesburg want you to know that this is not acceptable in Leesburg. This affects the little kids who like to come downtown and the visitors that come to our city. Stop it with the vandalism already. It's really, come on. And finally, I'd like to congratulate the football team who beat Tavares last weekend. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Commissioner Bone.
Just a couple things to follow up on, Al. I think we talked a little bit about doing those ordinances related to the vehicles, open storage, and so forth in the residential areas.
Yep, I'll get those to you.
Okay.
They're coming.
All right, and then I want to just bring up our youth situation again, and particularly with the additional revenues that will be coming down the road. I really believe that we need to have maybe look at Leesburg in a way that isn't historically or traditionally the way a city government maybe functions. We're doing a lot of good things here. There's a lot of great projects. We've got growth that's happening here. But one of the things that we battle against are some of the issues surrounding our youth and the schools in Leesburg. And I don't think that if all the good things that we do aren't, if we want to attract businesses into Leesburg and people to come live in Leesburg, our schools and the challenges that our youth have are really a detriment to us moving forward in the way that I think we would all like to move forward. And in the past, and I've said this before, I mean, traditionally our city governments and the monies that we raised, we raised money to fight fires, and we raised money for police, and whatever those challenges were in our communities that we could not, that needed the help of a city government and everybody pitching in together to do it. That's what city government developed around. If we look at today, with the challenges that our youth face and our families face, because frankly, people don't attend church as much, our families aren't as solid as they used to be. Those were things that we didn't have problems with in the past, and now we do. And I think a lot of the challenges that we see with our youth are a result of that. And so that is a challenge that we face as a community. And I think that we need to not do what's traditionally expected, which is to look to the school board to solve that problem, although we should, and we should encourage them to help build swimming pools or whatever it may be. If we wait for other people to help us, we're just going to keep on waiting. and we're not going to resolve the problems. And I think that we have the people in town that can help us resolve these problems and address these challenges. And I think we have the financial ability to address this. And so again, I don't know the numbers and I don't know the programs, but I would encourage us as a city that as we look forward that we allocate a substantial amount of money annually to the right kind of programs that would do things to encourage youth to go to school, to increase their attendance, their participation in school, to motivate them, their self-esteem and those kinds of things. And those can be done through programs that are extracurricular, whether it's music and dance and opportunities that they could have to do those things, tutoring, and I know Commissioner Christian with the Teen Center has some things, but all that costs money, and there are some countries that have addressed issues related to the challenges that their youth have, where they have actually they provide money every year for them to participate in extracurricular programs, and there's a kind of vouchers, and so if they would participate, then the local community, the city will pay for those programs for those kids to do it, and those kind of programs they help kids, and when a child can be involved with music or dance or arts in some fashion, and sports, that those things can be used in a positive way to encourage, that's going to help them to grow, but it also can be used to help them to continue to go to school, and school attendance is a big challenge that schools have everywhere, but we have here in Leesburg, and so as we talk about all these nice things that we're building and the monies that are coming in and the villages, I think that we need to look at our youth, and I think it's a challenge that we have that would require a long-term investment. It's not something that I think you can just build a building and you're going to solve the problem. It's going to require that may be a piece of it, but it's going to require an ongoing investment for the city to do that. And we don't have anything in our budget this year to do it. If we were to squeeze our budget next year and try to find the money, you're not going to find the money to do it. And so, well, maybe once the villages starts growing and those monies are coming in, but I would just encourage us in the future commissions and as a community that we rally behind our youth. We understand that the world is different today than it was 150 years ago, than it was 40 years ago, and that we come up with the solutions that are gonna help so that we can improve the chances for our youth to succeed in life, improve our schools in Leesburg, that will be a reason for people to come invest in Leesburg, to live and to bring their businesses. And if we don't, I think that we're going to continue to battle upstream against with everything else that we're doing until we solve that. So that's one for the youth, and I wish them the best. But it's a tremendous challenge that they have today. That's all I have tonight.
Commissioner Christian?
Well, I concur with Commissioner Bone, and I think we have some things already in place. I just don't think we do them well. Travis, how many kids we have to play Pop 1 football?
Just under 200.
Got 200 kids that play Pop 1 football. So they come out on Saturday, practice 2 or 3 times during the week. But after that, we have no connectivity with them saying, let me encourage you to go to school. In fact, we charge a parent $200 to play. $100 to play Pop 1 football. So that goes back into what Commissioner Bone is saying. And we, the city, says, well, we'll give you a voucher to play Pop 1 football, but you have to commit to going to school every day. You got to commit to having decent grades. You got to commit to reading 3 or 4 books. So I think we got things in place. We just don't go to the extra step. So I think coordinating with our school district, our sports programs, finding people in our community who can teach art. But most people just can't do it. I found with kids, they don't need fancy. They just need somebody who shows them that they care. Finding someone in our community who says, look, I can devote 2 or 3 days a week. If the city has to pay them to do it, let them do it. Let the kids come. And I think we got things in place. Leesburg's always been a city. I've seen a guy, Facebook talk about what is your city council doing for kids. I think our city probably has more programs for youth than any other city in Lake County. I mean, you talk about from the gymnasium to the swimming pool to our sports program at the gym. I think our costs are probably cheaper than any other city in Lake County. And Travis probably trying to add more programs. So I think we just got to go that extra step. How do we encourage kids when we got them playing our sports, we got them into our gymnasium, we got them, so how do we go that next step to connect them? Schools are called and say we need a mentoring program where they want you to mentor at 3:30 on a Wednesday afternoon. How many dads can do that? I'm working, I can't go to the school. So I just think we got great ideas, but we don't have the reality of it. So I believe connecting teens, connecting young, connecting our more aggressive kids who are playing sports, I think that really is what Leesburg could do a better job at, connecting young people and incentivizing them to go to school. Because I think for years when I started working with youth, it was we blamed the parents. Well, blaming the parents don't fix the kids, because parents are going to be parents. So I think with our program we have in place, I just think we got to go that extra step, and I think that's where the finances do come in. Let's really be intended on how are we going to make this happen. But I think we are moving in that direction, but I think it's going to require resources and going to have to be some out-of-the-box type of thinking to really connect these dots and make Leesburg youth really see the value of good education, hard work ethics, good work ethics, and just to become a better productive citizen. So I do concur.
If I can just add to that, I mean, I'd like to see it go beyond sports. I mean,
I agree.
But for a child to be exposed to to music and arts and things, it will open their minds and to learning and different experiences.
Right.
That
I
just
agree.
gives a broader perspective, and I think that's something that when I look at it, and I don't know that kind of a program, I've always thought that why isn't music like Little League, where people go out there and volunteer so much time to teach a kid how to hit a baseball, but where are all the volunteers? Why isn't there a program for music where kids can go participate in this music program, and there are volunteers and opportunities to do that? And it's all sports, which is good, but sometimes sports create this expectation that I'm going to be. Right. It's going to get me to college. It's going to pay me down the road, and that's unlikely to happen. But even having that exposure to sports is good. But when you get to the music and the arts, that's one that it changes a character in a way that to learn and do things. So I'd like to just see whatever your plans are that we.
Yeah, we had a young lady come from Claremont. She was a professional ballerina dancer. She's African American, came to Leesburg. She couldn't find a facility to do dance, and so kids are now having to drive to Claremont because she couldn't find a building. So I think it's very few people that's been ballerinas who can come and say, I'm going to deal with 30, 40 kids at a time. So I think finding that volunteer, and I got my kids in piano lesson, and Ms. Bear said, well, John, most parents think 3 weeks your kid's going to be Mozart. And most kids just don't do it, and they give up. They don't want to do it. So I think that's where you're going to have to find those people in Leesburg who are willing to give their time and their talent. And my month's theme for the church is stewardship. So goes with managing what God has given you. So I just think we got to find those people to put them in place. But that's Bob took me on talking about youth. That take me way a lot. But I think one thing, I know we talked about it a lot. But we do have a lot of new people who will be moving to our city. My concern is our districts. How we, as a commission, really thought about districting our entire city. I know we have 3, and we got 2 at-large seats. And so if you think about our large seats, we bring in 2,800 new residents. South 27. Well, those 2,800 people vote. They can have actually 3 voting commissioners on the diocese, and I don't know if that's going to give us a proper representation of Leesburg. So I want you to think about maybe looking at our charter and having 5 districts as opposed to having 3 districts and 2 at larges.
Yeah, let me speak to that for a second. And Fruitland Park went through the same issue. So I think once this land sale is closed, we're probably 3 years or so out before you start seeing full build out. And so I think the next year, I'll get with Fred and we'll look into those charter issues. And
I said none of us will be here. That's why I brought it.
No, but I we've heard that. In fact, when we had the discussion with the villages from the onset, we had that in mind, and we didn't want to make a reaction. But once the deal is closed and done, and it's coming, then we need to revisit that issue.
That's all I have.
Go ahead.
In line with what John was saying, I was sitting there thinking about local history appreciation. We have our museums. We can bring our children to our museums from the high schools or from the even middle schools or grade schools. And Alyssa was mentioning the girls. Several years ago, I wrote to the person that coordinates and runs the show for the girls and said, these girls don't know a thing about local history, and they should be taught local history. I volunteered to do local history for these girls. As I know, I've talked to some of the girls over the years. They have no knowledge of local history. And I think that would be important to have someone that would bring local history to these kids too as part of your entire program, you know? Thank you.
Commissioner Hurley.
Well, I'll just reiterate, I mean, yes, everybody here in the room tonight can say we need to do something for the kids, and we can all come up with ideas, but until you find somebody that's willing to go out there and do it, it don't matter. That's the biggest problem. We just got to find people who really care about it and do it. And I don't know that that's necessarily the city's job to go out and find that. Number two, as far as money goes, they're just getting another $4.6 million from us annually right now. So I think we really, I don't know, I think I just have a huge issue with the fact that we have elected officials that sit on a school board that have 20 times the budget that we have, and then we're wanting to try to pull money apart and set aside. While I totally agree and respect for the need, I think that the way government is set up, we should be pressing those representatives on those boards to do their job instead of saying, well, we'll just keep giving you just millions and millions and millions of dollars, but we'll go out and pull our budget money aside and do your job for you. And that's where I have a problem with it. And I think the main thing is just to encourage people to get out and vote people out of office that won't do their job. So that's my 2 cents on it. But anyway, one of the things we have talked about this, and I know we dealt with it just a little bit, but when we were talking about the streetscapes and stuff that we've done, the beautification ordinances and things of that nature, the car lots, one of the things we dealt with was banners and flags and all that kind of stuff. And code enforcement went out, was something we addressed a couple of weeks ago. They went out and asked people, they're parking on the stinking sidewalk. I mean, they're just, like nobody knows they're a dealership unless they got a Ford sitting on the sidewalk. So to my dismay, there really isn't any teeth for us, from what I understand, to rectify that. And so I would like us to start looking and putting that in motion, because here's what's happened. We have some, because of some leverage we have with like Phillips, they lease some property from us. And so they understand they want to stay in good graces because they desperately need to lease that property across the street. And some others, just because they're good partners, want to help the city. But I can tell you, being in the business, that when one guy starts parking 20 cars on the sidewalk, every other dude is going to do the same thing. And we're just going to look like a parking lot right down the road. And so I don't know how y'all feel about it, but if we don't start trying to figure out a way to curb this, really, it's just going to be an ugly eyesore of junk all down there. And, we can waste all this time and effort putting bushes and landscaping and setbacks and all that, and then they just go block it and their cars kill the grass, and, it just, so if you all agree, I would like at least the staff to see what we could start putting in place that would give us some teeth to address that in the future. And I do want to say this. While I mean, we talked about it, Commissioner Bone brought it up, and we've talked about it several times, how we got the ugly Waffle House and Aldora got the pretty one, we got the ugly Dollar General, blah, blah, blah. I think we need to do, we really need to, and you've already alluded to maybe addressing it on your level, putting something in place. But we got to be careful, in my opinion, when some business comes in, we just drop the hammer on them. I think it needs to be something that's set, that's broad span. We always say when we're having these meetings, we're having these big discussions, nobody wants to come here because we have impact fees, or nobody wants to come because of our electric rate. Well, sometimes they might not want to come just because the commission's a little bit hard to work with and wants to impose a bunch of stuff. That U-Haul building tonight's one of the nicest storage facilities I've ever seen, and it's going to be 20 times better than what's down there. And heck, I'm just happy something's coming in and going to raise that ad valorem tax rate and going to be a nice looking structure opposed to what we could get. And I think now that the South End's going to start building, you're going to see a lot of it. But instead of just hammering on individual guys that come in here and putting things on them that nobody else has had to do, I think we need to set something that's just, this is what our requirements are if you build in the city, and just put something in place. My third thing is I want to address the parking. Myself and Al, we went and met with Beacon College, and on a very hot day for some reason in the middle of it, and we did a hour-and-a-half walk through downtown. Beacon College, they now have stickers on all of their cars. If they're staff or if they're students, they have a sticker now so that they can be readily identified. To our dismay, there was 2 cars that we found downtown in the high demand parking area that belonged to Beacon College, and largely, you cannot gonna believe it, we found an overwhelming amount of cars that were on Main Street from merchants who don't want to walk to work. And we took a walk behind the Leesburg Partnership. There were 30 spaces in our parking spot, our parking lot back there, 30 spaces sitting wide open. There were three whole levels of cars, of parking spaces in the parking garage that didn't have more than 2 cars out of the 50 that each level will hold. And then up and down these 2 streets, there might have been 5 cars out of the 40 spaces right here. So I think until we get the property, I think we need to really get the message out there that, hey, walking's good for you. And if you're a merchant and want people parking in front of your business, you might want to maybe walk yourself a block. Number 2, I think one of the most important things that people forget if they're a merchant, you don't want people parking right in front of your business. That's crazy, because if you only park in front of where you're going, you'll never see the other stuff. So then you're limiting the exposure you're going to get. You want people to park down the street and then walk to you, and vice versa, so you get it. So I think we've got a lot of parking that's available, and to take some of the heat off us, I'd like to just point out we did our due diligence, and while we're working on that, we have found a lot of ample parking that we'd be happy to point out for people where it's at. That's all for me.
Mayor Robeck.
I just think we can't overstate what a big step forward tonight was for the city of Leesburg. We saw the numbers Al gave us. That doesn't include all the other knock-on development we'll get from other commercial property in Leesburg, the new businesses that will be created, the new jobs that are going to come, the impact on the school. And no matter how much money comes in, we're always going to argue about what we should do with it. We're never going to have as much as we want. But I think we got a little heated tonight talking about whether we were going to spend $7 or $8 million on a community building. And that's a whole lot better than some cities who are wondering what they should cut.
And we're not borrowing money to do it.
And we're not borrowing money to do it. And we had the conversation to open the library, something to help kids. And we're always going to be able to do more, and we're always going to have different ideas. But I think we just can't overstate how positive tonight was for Leesburg's future and for future commissions to come up here so they can argue over what we should do with this money as opposed to what they would like to do with all the money they don't have. So with that.
Hey, before you gavel, if y'all want to rethink that extra to get it back, we can still pull it off. I mean,
I'm happy.
I'm just saying. I mean, he saved us $10 a house. That over 50 years is $1.5 million. I'm just letting you know where you're at money-wise.
I appreciate it.
All right. Wait, that's easy.